My entitled coworker expected me to stay late to do her job, as she was behind on work that she hadn't even started, assuming that I could just cancel my plans after work just to do her job, which inevitably gave me the perfect chance to shut her down and show her that she is not the boss of me and she does not decide when I have to stay late. Here's what happened. For a bit of context to set the scene, this was a regular work day. There were no deadlines that day, no last-minute requests from management. We were wrapping up and people were already shutting down their computers. About 10 minutes before the end of the day, a coworker came over to my desk and asked what time I was heading out, and I told her I was leaving on time. She then nodded and said to me, "Okay, because I'm going to need help finishing something up." I then asked what it was, and she explained it was a task that she'd been assigned earlier that week and just hadn't gotten to it yet. And she said this casually, like it was already understood that I would stay, but I told her I couldn't because I had plans after work. She then paused and asked what the plans were, but I said they were personal. She then looked a little surprised and said, "But this is work." But I already told her I'd finished everything on my plate and that it wasn't something I'd been asked to help with earlier. She then stood there for a moment and said, "It won't take that long." But still, I said I couldn't stay. She said to me, "I just thought you'd be more of a team player." And if I'm being completely honest, there wasn't anything I could really say to that without starting an argument. So I just repeated that I wasn't able to help and I went back to shutting down my computer. As I was leaving, I could see her still working at her desk and no one said anything to me on the way out. The next week, she mentioned it again in passing, saying that she'd been overwhelmed that night and it would have been easier if I had stuck around. But you know what? Nothing happened because the work got done eventually. No one was in trouble, and if I'm being honest, it just stuck with me how easily she assumed my time belonged to her once the workday ended, which is really toxic and I'm just glad I didn't help her out. Okay, I can't stand coworkers like this who don't get their crap done in time, but then try to shovel it off onto your desk and be like, "Oh, you can help out, right? It'd be great if you could be a team player. I mean, it's not going to take that long." It's like, yeah, it's not going to take long for you because I'm not doing it. Unless a supervisor steps in and says, "You have to do this," sorry, you're not the boss of me and I'm not going to listen to you. And you know for a fact that regardless of what you said your plans were, she would have made some kind of excuse and been like, "Oh, you can cancel." It literally could have been anything and she still would have been like, "Oh no, you need to leave those plans behind and do my work for me." So good for you for shutting her down and saying, "No, I'm not going to do your work for you. This is some weird behavior." Because at the end of the day, the work got done. And just because she's unorganized doesn't mean that you have to cancel your plans just to help her out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my personal notes at work after everyone literally ignored me before? Because right now everyone's kind of pissed off that I shut them down and I'm really not sure if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I work in a mid-size office and I'm known for being pretty organized. And this is not in a way where I like brag about it or anything like that. I just like writing stuff down and keeping track of things because my memory is trash. Over time, I built my own system for notes for meetings, reoccurring issues, contacts, weird procedures nobody documents, all that boring stuff. I did this on my own time mostly, and no one asked me to do it, and no one really cared either. Well, a few months ago, I actually tried to share some of it. We had a messy project, and I offered to post my notes in the shared drive so that we could all be on the same page in some kind of way. And while people said yes, nobody even opened it. Nobody commented, and later, I even got blamed for not reminding someone about a deadline that was literally in the notes. And so after that, I stopped offering, and I kept doing my own thing quietly. Fast forward to last week, and our team lead is out sick. Everything's on fire and suddenly everyone's asking me for my notes, like multiple messages a day. They'll say, "Can you send that document over? Do you still have the checklist? What was the last contact again? I can't remember." But I reply politely that my notes are personal and not an official resource, and that I don't feel comfortable sharing them anymore. I then suggested we wait for the lead or just check the official documents. And now after I did that, people are acting cold. One coworker said I'm being petty and holding information hostage, and another person joked that I think I'm special. But I don't feel special. I just feel burned from the last time and I don't want responsibility for other people's mistakes. So am I the jerk for saying no even though it would have helped the team right now? Because at this point I'm honestly frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, there's no way I would ever give those people my notes ever again. They clearly didn't appreciate it the first time, so they're not going to get a bailout the second time. And also, why are they not taking notes during meetings? Why are they not writing things down and not doing their job? If anything, this could be solid proof that yeah, you kind of deserve a raise if anything. No one else is keeping track of stuff and they're now relying on you all because they can't do their job right? I do not think so. Your lack of planning is not my emergency, get lost. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is absolutely not your problem. Because if these people can't keep their lives straightened out, then honestly, that is something they need to figure out and not something you need to save. Am I the jerk for telling my wife's family that they cannot cook their turkey in our oven at Christmas? Because even though we've explained that we're vegetarians and we don't want our oven smelling like meat, my wife's family is basically saying that we're putting our beliefs over the Christmas spirit. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Each Christmas, my wife and I host her family. This has been going on for a while now as we have young kids, and it's just better for the kids to be at home all day on Christmas Day to play with their new things. My wife and I are also both vegetarians. We're not militant and we totally believe that everyone has a right to choose what they want to eat, but nevertheless, we both find the meat industry horrific and hate the thought of what meat is. Most of my wife's family are also vegetarian, which does help, but her dad and brother are not. Normally, they cook the turkey at home and then heat it up in our microwave, as we never really used it, so we aren't really bothered about meat being cooked in it. However, our microwave is broken this year. We've not replaced it or looked at getting it fixed, as we have no real reason to use it. Well, my father-in-law is now saying that we should either cook the turkey in our oven, or at least let them heat it up in the oven. But when he asked this, I said no. We really just don't want our oven smelling of meat, and the same for the air fryer. We then said that they're welcome to bring their own air fryer and use that, but he's being a bit difficult and saying we're putting our silly beliefs ahead of the Christmas spirit. I've tried pointing out that neither of us object to them eating meat in our house. That's literally their choice. We just really don't want it cooked in our oven. It's got to the point now where I'm seriously thinking of just buying a new microwave tomorrow just to put an end to all of this. So seriously, am I the jerk for not wanting the meat to be cooked in our oven? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, I don't think you're the jerk because you're going about this the right way. You're telling them, hey, cook it ahead of time and then heat it up somewhere, or like bring your air fryer with you and take care of it that way. But we don't want our stuff to smell like meat because we're vegetarians and that's probably gonna make us sick. And by the way, that really is true. Like, I do know some vegetarians who will get sick at the smell of meat or like meat being cooked, and they also can't eat meat at all because it really will make them sick, like food poisoning sick. So in my opinion, I don't think what the original poster is asking is really that big of a deal. So in my opinion, I don't think the original poster is the jerk, and I think they're being very reasonable and they're giving options that can be followed. My wife spent 7 hours at a lake in the middle of the night supporting a friend who is known to be a serial cheater. And right now I'm getting paranoid because this really doesn't look great. And I'm trying to figure out if I'm in the wrong for feeling this way or if there is a possibility that something sketchy is going on. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out if I'm overreacting or if my logic is somewhat sound. Yesterday was a huge day for me. I had been up since dawn cooking for the holiday and solo parenting our 3-year-old child. By 7:00 p.m., I was exhausted. Well, my wife told me that a male friend of hers who is currently the center of a local cheating scandal was in crisis and needed to talk. She then left at about 7:00 to meet with him. And obviously, I stayed home with the kid. Using location sharing, I noticed they spent the next 6 hours at a local lake. Then, fast forward to 1:00 in the morning, I messaged her just to make sure that she was alive. She replied back instantly saying that she was still alive, but instead of coming back home, her location moved to further out on the water and she stayed there for another 40 minutes. Eventually, she finally got home at about 2:15 in the morning. Well, this morning, she has been completely silent about it. No apology for being late, no explanation of the crisis, and she's been avoiding me while focusing entirely on our kid. The main issue is that I had to use her car today to take our kid to the shops, and when I opened the door, the car reeked of unfamiliar sweat. It was a strong, lingering scent that has not been there ever since she left. Now, here's the facts. Her friend is a known serial cheater. She spent 7 hours with him alone until like 2:00 in the morning, all while I was home exhausted after doing all the labor and childcare, and she's not said a single word about the night ever since she walked in. I am a pretty logical person, and I try to lead with trust, but the combination of the location, the duration, and the silence today, plus the smell in the car, makes me feel like my intelligence is being insulted, and I'm being way too trusting. So seriously, am I being paranoid? Like, am I the jerk for being suspicious here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I don't know about you, but it definitely sounds like she's cheating on you. I have no evidence about this and I have no way of proving it, but based on what you're describing, this is incredibly sketchy. Like, dude, she's got a kid at home and a husband, and instead of being there with you two, for the holidays, she runs off for like 7 hours to spend time with this guy who's also known as a serial cheater. Like, are you kidding me right now? What in the world is going on? That is so stupid. Like, considering the context and everything going on in this situation, I would be very suspicious as well and be like, oh yeah, she was definitely doing something she shouldn't. Because dude, she was there for 7 hours. I can understand like an hour and a half or like 2 hours, but 7 hours at that point is a choice. And it kind of leads me to believe that yeah, there is something else going on here. So no, you're not paranoid. I think what you think is going on might actually be what's going on. And if that is the case, that really is unfortunate and you definitely do not deserve that. My entitled neighbor thinks that she owns a public path in front of her house, as she actively made our life incredibly difficult anytime we try to park in front of her house, putting us in a situation that was honestly incredibly annoying. Here's what happened. Okay, so this started about 6 years ago when we moved into a house with a fairly long driveway. The neighbors next to us were decent enough, but the house on the opposite side of us ended up being an absolute nightmare. We have 2 cars, one being a sedan and the other being a small hatchback, and the long driveway means that we can fit both cars on it, but there is a fence along half of it, meaning if we need to use the car behind, we have to move the other. This also means when we have to take the bins out, we have to move both cars. So once a week, we would park the smaller car on the pavement opposite our house in front of this entitled neighbor's place. And also, we would park on the pavement outside of our house, but due to the position of a lamppost, it makes it awkward to get in and out of the driveway with the other car. And there's a large patch of grass which we are trying to maintain. Also, keep in mind, we would only park there overnight maybe once or twice a week. Eventually, I got the use of a work car, so that would be parked on the opposite side every other week. When we first moved in, she kept yelling across the street about how we were parking on her land and that we needed to stop. So we went ahead and checked, and guess what? It's a public pavement, so anyone is allowed to park there if they want to. She then called the police saying that we were illegally parking, but when the police turned up, they literally just went away once they realized we weren't doing anything wrong. She had multiple cameras set up looking at her house, and then called the police again when we set up one looking at our driveway after someone literally keyed our sedan. We assumed it was her, but we had no proof. Then she set up like 2 loads of cement blocks and some wooden pallets on the pavement, blocking anyone from parking there, as she stated that she was storing them there while doing work on her backyard. But apparently the council told her to remove them by the end of the week. But she didn't remove them until the police told her that she had to move them a month later. She then started reversing into her driveway by deliberately going up onto the grass verge, destroying it, while shining high beams into our living room. Eventually she stopped and just kind of gave up after about 2 or 3 years of this, but her driveway was wide enough for 2 cars, and she only ever parked on the pathway to stop us from parking there. I also work nights, so I would get back in the morning just to see her SUV parked on the pavement with her driveway empty, and so I would just park behind her. Thankfully, we've since moved out of that house after some issues with the landlord, and honestly, I'm grateful because dealing with that neighbor was truly a nightmare. Okay, I will never understand why people have any kind of issue with someone parking on the street in front of your house. If they're not on your property and they're not blocking your driveway, then congratulations, there's nothing you can do about it and you need to get a life. It does not make any sense to me why anyone gets upset about this. I'm not even kidding. Because you're not doing anything wrong if you do park on the street. It's a public area. You literally can park there if you want to. And sometimes you kind of need to do that. So yeah, your neighbor sucked, and I'm so glad that you moved away from them, because I've dealt with neighbors like this before and it really is an everyday nightmare. And I don't even think I would wish that on my worst enemies. Am I the jerk for leaving Christmas dinner? All because my uncle wouldn't stop making jokes and putting me down about being unemployed. Because right now, my family's kind of acting like I'm the issue here, despite the fact that this guy was really treating me terribly. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, I'm a male in my 30s, and I've been out of work for a bit, but I'm actively looking. I'm doing interviews, I'm doing all the things that I need to do. And while this isn't really a secret, I really don't want it to be the main topic at any kind of family gathering. Well, we had a family Christmas dinner this past weekend. I went and brought a bottle and dessert and was very polite and helped clear the plates and just tried to get through it. Well, my uncle started with the usual, "Oh, so when are you getting a job?" type of comments. I did the normal laugh it off thing and said, "Oh, I'm on it," but he kept going all night. He would say stuff like, "Must be nice having a permanent holiday. Maybe Santa can bring you a resume. You know, you should try working instead of sitting on the computer." And the worst part about it is that while he was saying this, people laughed and literally nobody told him to stop. After the 4th or 5th comment, I finally said calmly, "Hey, can you drop it? I'm here for dinner, not to be roasted." But he replied by saying something like, "Oh, come on, it's just banter. Don't be so sensitive." Well, at that point, I just got up and I said, "Right, I'm heading off. Merry Christmas, everyone." And then I just straight up left. But now my mom is saying I embarrassed her and I should have just ignored him because that's just how he is. And she says that it made things awkward for everybody. But I really did not enjoy that. So am I the jerk for leaving instead of sitting there and taking it? Because right now I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I will say this 100 times. I don't care if it's family or anybody. Anyone who talks to you like that and then refuses to stop when you tell them to drop it, in my opinion, no longer is family and instead is someone who needs to be shut down. Like, these are the type of people that if you don't put your foot down, they will walk all over you and make you feel like garbage forever. Which, by the way, is completely unfair. Like, this stopped being a joke the second he tried to be like, "Oh yeah, Santa should bring you a resume. You're just on a permanent holiday." Like, that's so uncalled for, it's really just demoralizing. Because I guarantee guarantee you, this guy's probably so sensitive that if the shoe was on the other foot and you said these jokes to him, he would freak out and lose his mind. And also, your mom trying to be like, oh, that's just the way he is. What she's really saying is, oh, I'm too afraid to say anything, and the fact that you did is putting us all in a situation we don't want to be in, which really means they would rather you fall on the sword than have to do anything to correct this guy, which is so inappropriate and just so toxic. So no, you're not the jerk for leaving. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing, because that kind of behavior and those kind of comments are inappropriate and you don't deserve that. Am I the jerk for returning my mom's gift that she gave me after I found an AirTag in it that she had put there so that she could track my location? Because right now I'm really pissed off and I don't know what else to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I live about 40 minutes away from my mom, and we've had a reoccurring issue where she worries in a way that turns into control. For example, she will send me a text message, and if I don't respond within an hour, she will literally call my friends if I'm quiet. It's stuff like that. It's really obnoxious. I've tried talking to her calmly and it always becomes, I'm just being a good mother. Well, last month she showed up at my apartment building because she had a bad feeling and wanted to make sure that I was alive. But I wasn't in danger. I was literally just taking a nap after a night shift. We had a big argument and I just told her very clearly that you cannot show up unannounced ever again. Well, this week she invited me for dinner and handed me a new keychain that had a little tile style finder on it. She then said it was so I would never lose my keys ever again and acted super proud of herself. And I actually thought it was kind of sweet until I got home and the keychain kept pinging my phone in weird ways. I then opened the battery compartment and inside of it, taped under the plastic, was an AirTag, not the brand name finder she told me it was. And when I checked it, it was registered to her Apple ID. I then texted her asking her why. Why did you do this? And she responded with a bunch of crying emojis and said that I'm paranoid. She said it's for emergencies and that any daughter would be grateful for this. I then drove over the next day, put the keychain on her kitchen counter and said I'm returning it and that I need some space for a bit. She then started yelling that I'm punishing her and that I'm being cruel for making her feel unsafe. And now as a result of this, my aunt is texting me that I'm overreacting and that apparently moms just do this. So seriously, am I overreacting? Like, am I the jerk at all? Because this entire situation has really creeped me out. Okay, first off, no, you're not the jerk. This is weird. You're 28 years old. You live on your own. Your mom has no business trying to track your location, which is exactly what she was doing, by the way. She's trying to keep tabs on everywhere you're going and like all the things you're doing, which is truly just so weird, man. Like, that's creepy. It's also alarming that she's trying to justify this by being like, oh, all moms do this. I just want to make sure I know where you're at. But it's like, dude, your daughter is a fully grown woman. She's 28 years old, dude. She doesn't need you tracking her location. Like, that's weird. So no, you're not the jerk. I would also send this back to my mom, but I would probably shatter it in the process because she has no business tracking your location. And the fact that she tried that in the first place is really weird. Am I overreacting for being upset that my boyfriend ruined my pancakes just to teach me a lesson on Christmas morning? Because the way he acted seems so out of character that it honestly is really concerning. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm really trying to figure out if I'm genuinely overreacting or if this means something more. On Christmas morning, my boyfriend and I were making pancakes together. This was something I was really looking forward to, by the way. It felt like a small, cozy holiday moment. We were using 2 separate pans and we each had our own pancakes going on. Now, for a bit of background about me, I have diagnosed OCD, and while I know that can sometimes make me difficult to cook with, in this case, I only mentioned that pancake batter should be mixed gently because overmixing develops gluten and it makes the pancakes dense. I wasn't criticizing him, I just explained why we need to mix it lightly. Well, he took over the bowl anyways and started aggressively mixing it, which really surprised me. Then he wouldn't let me pour the batter. When I finally did get to pour my own pancakes, he took his ladle and smushed and smeared the 3 pancakes I had cooking. And when I asked him why he did that, he said he was teaching me a lesson because apparently I'm difficult to cook with. And I gotta be honest, that really upset me. It felt humiliating and unnecessary, especially because we were literally on separate pans, it was Christmas morning, and this was something I was genuinely excited about. Also, his family in the kitchen said that I was overreacting and that apparently it's just pancakes and everyone would still eat them. So to them, it wasn't a big deal. And if I'm being completely transparent, this part also kind of stung because it felt like when a kid breaks another kid's toy and instead of correcting the kid who did it, everyone tells the one who's upset to just suck it up. And sure, I do sometimes like things done a certain way, but I've always taken his input as well. If we want tomatoes, I add them in. If he prefers something different, I adjust. I might take some more time sauteing vegetables or be really particular about technique, but I've never intentionally ruined his food. food, or tried to punish him for how he cooks. So I guess I'm really questioning, like, am I overreacting for crying about this on Christmas morning, or is it reasonable to be hurt? And also, by the way, after all of this, he refused to let me make my eggs my own way and said that no, I'm gonna eat them his way. And I really think this is still part of the lesson he's trying to teach me. What should I do? Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you. This guy does not care about you because his reaction in this situation is so weird. Think about it for a second. He's trying to teach you a lesson? Like, what lesson are we talking about? Because the only thing I'm learning from the outside looking in is that your boyfriend is very unkind and very mean to you. And he's only doing this to try and make you feel bad about wanting it done a certain way. Which, if I'm being completely honest, there were easy compromises that could have been made. He could have said something like, oh, let me get your own bowl and then you can mix it how you want. That way you can have the pancakes exactly how you feel they should be made. Or something like that. Like, it would have been easy to separate it and be like, oh, okay, you could do it your way and I'm gonna do it my way. But instead, he acted like a really immature jerk. He went out of his way to try and like make you look bad, especially in front of his family, who are also pieces of garbage. Like, what are they talking about? It's just pancakes, we're gonna eat it anyways. Which makes me think like, yeah, the original poster's right. This is the other kid breaking the toy and being like, oh, you need to suck it up. You're the problem by having a reaction to it. So no, you're not the jerk here, you're not overreacting, because from the sounds of it, your boyfriend literally doesn't like you. And I'm really sorry if that's like the first time you're realizing it, because this felt very intentional on a day where this really should not have happened. My psycho ex-boyfriend has been cheating not only on me, but with literally every single woman he's ever been with for several years. So after having my heart broken and watching my entire life fall apart, my best friend and I decided to get some revenge by quite literally ruining his life from the ground up. Here's what happened. So in a nutshell, my ex-boyfriend, who we will call Seth, could be pretty accurately described as a sociopath. Of course, that was never apparent to me while we were dating, but those familiar with ASPD will know that many sociopaths wear an elaborate mask and lie as easily as breathing, and this was definitely true for Seth. When I met him, we quickly became close friends. We had a couple of weeks in there where we thought we might start dating, but he wanted to move way faster than I was ready for, so we remained in the friend zone instead. He was progressive and emotionally intelligent and generous. We loved the same music and shows and activities, and he showed vulnerability. He even shared his traumatic childhood background with me, and as a side note, he leaned on this story often as a pillar of his victimhood, which he uses to manipulate everybody else around him. He also shared very early on, before anything physical ever happened, that he has HSV2. Not to say that there were zero red flags about this guy, but the good I saw in him was so overwhelming that I had an easy time dismissing them. We started dating in a weird way. During our friend zone time that lasted about a year, he had moved out of state to be with a new partner by the name of Melody, who he had been dating for only a few months. He never shared a lot of details about her, and I had assumed that they had some kind of history that explained the seemingly sudden seriousness of their relationship. Then, seriously, like 2 months into the move, Seth started to message me in a more flirty way. He told me he loved me, and that it took moving away to realize what he had. Obviously, this made me really uncomfortable. I told him I wasn't interested in being the other woman, or in a long-distance relationship of any kind, and that he and I needed to keep it platonic. He supposedly tried to make it work with her for several more months, while also telling me how she was an alcoholic, and that she would yell at him and all this other stuff. Eventually, he told me that they broke up and that he was making arrangements to move back, but he was still living with her though. He then began sending increasingly flirtatious and romantic messages, and this is the point where I almost escaped him, but he was clever enough to make friends with my roommate, who we will call Eris, since Eris and I had been living together for 7 years. A serendipitous friend of a friend turned to a roommate situation eventually evolved into a deep friendship. Eris helped convince me that he was really a good guy who was madly in love with me, and that despite the weirdness of his moving out of state and then changing his mind, I should finally give him a real chance. And this is where I can truly say I messed up big time. Now, without going into great detail about the relationship, I can say that the typical idolize and devalue pattern of emotional mistreatment began to emerge pretty soon after we moved in together. Even though he was really sweet most of the time, he moved into the townhouse I shared with Eris about a year after he moved back to town, and we had begun dating officially for 6 months. He lived with us for about a year and a half. Now, with that bit of background out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. Just like any good sociopath, he was lying about a lot, being manipulative, and cheating like you would not believe. Seeing as this post is already way too long, I probably should skip to the story of how Eris caught him cheating. Now, by sheer intuition, they glanced at his phone one evening when the three of us were at home together. They saw him open, close, and then like an Instagram DM that was definitely a spicy picture, if you know what I mean. When Eris saw this, they instantly texted me as I was sitting opposite him on the couch, and you know what? I called him out. out. He angled his phone away from me to delete the message thread, but Eris saw him do it. He then gaslit the both of us and denied it. He denied the DM, he denied deleting it, and honestly, I didn't know who to believe, either my partner or my best friend. Now, I really believe them both, and I thought there must be some rational explanation that lets Seth off the hook without invalidating what I believe Eris saw. I could not believe that he could look me dead in the eye and lie to me like that, and he even cried and played the victim in all of this. A day later, he came up with a plausible explanation for the spicy photo in his DMs. He said that the photo was sent to his friend by a fan of their band because she had gotten a tattoo of their logo or something like that, and that the friend sent it to him to say, hey, check this out, which by the way is super gross. He had private conversations with both myself and Eris, and we later found out that he had used different reasons, all catered to our own biases, just to excuse himself for lying and gaslighting. For Eris, it was his religious trauma, and to me, it was past relationship trauma of his insecure and paranoid ex over-policing his social media use. At this point, he was on thin ice with me, and I didn't really know how he was going to be able to rebuild the trust. But we lived together and had just adopted a dog together, and our lives were so intertwined, I just wanted to go back to normal if we could. I really wanted to believe him and not blow up our lives over some spicy pictures on his phone. Then, just a couple of weeks later, Eris went to a party at Seth's ex-roommate's house. Seth had left the roommate situation on pretty bad terms, burning the bridge with the ex-roommate who we will call Loon. Well, one of Loon's friends, who we will call Holly, pulled Eris aside to tell them that Seth was cheating on me. Apparently, Holly had been sending some spicy text messages with Seth a few months back and was basically sending some very spicy pictures as well, if you know what I mean. He then began to get really pushy about convincing her to spend more quality time with him and another girl who we will call Tiara, and he even sent spicy pictures of Tiara over to Holly. Well, she eventually got grossed out by him and ghosted him, and he responded to the ghosting by getting upset and aggressive with her. When he was confronted, he denied everything and willingly handed over his phone, which had of course been scrubbed of all evidence. He gaslit, he denied, he cried, and he even threw up. I asked him for the truth so many times, but he gazed into my eyes and told me I was the love of his life and that none of this made any sense, even asking why Holly would make this up. I wanted to believe him so bad, but I contacted Holly and she provided receipts. And when I saw this, I kicked him out immediately. He packed up some clothing and left that night. I told him to get the rest of his crap while I was at work and to never speak to me again. Then I blocked him on everything, and that was the last time I spoke to him. But Eris was not so tolerant, because this begins the most satisfying part of this story. As Seth was packing his bags to get out that first night, I was numb and in shock, and still very used to protecting his feelings and shielding him from my friend's criticism. So I didn't let Eris vandalize his car like they wanted to. Well, they did write liar on the hood of his car in lipstick, and we even took some pictures of it. But after he left, Eris did the thing that would open Pandora's box. They posted a warning on social media. They are something of an internet personality and make their living on TikTok, so their Instagram has decent reach. The Instagram story simply showed his profile and gave the warning that he is a liar and a cheater. Well, the release of this information made Seth come a day earlier than planned to get the rest of his stuff. Now, I was at work and planned to stay there until he was gone, but Eris had made plans to make his move as miserable as possible. For starters, the night before he came to pack up, Eris and I unorganized his meticulously curated record collection, moving records into the wrong sleeves while de-alphabetizing the sleeves themselves. Eris wanted to break them, but I wouldn't let them. I was still protecting him in some kind of way, but I did allow them to scratch some and let the dog bite a couple of them and tear some of the inserts. Eris also ripped all the strings off of his bass guitar and threw away one of his pedals when I wasn't around. Now, when he came to collect his stuff, Eris blasted the song IDFWU by Big Sean on repeat until he packed up his soundbar. But then Eris continued to play it on their phone as loud as they could. They threw dog kibble at him as he packed his things in the living room, all while booing him and yelling shame. Eris would also not allow Seth's brother in the house to help him move. For reference, Eris is 6 foot tall and can be very intimidating. Seth argued and tried to bring his brother inside, but Eris physically blocked the door. They then began to yell, "Don't you dare come into my house. You do not have permission to be here. He is not getting help. He is doing this by himself, and he is going to suffer." Eris then mocked and laughed at Seth and took video of him moving his stupid, precious, mid-century modern dresser down the stairs on his own as his brother stood outside completely helpless. Towards the end of his eviction, I messaged Eris that I'd found Tiara's Instagram account, and Eris yelled at him, "Oh, we found Tiara." And after that, he had a fire lit under his butt so hot that he finished up so quickly that he forgot to take a bunch of stuff, including his 55-inch Roku TV, an IKEA bar chart, a humidifier, a collection of really really nice art supplies, and a cool hanging lamp that we love. So honestly, it was kind of a score for us. Meanwhile, Eris's post blew up locally, and all of a sudden, both Eris and I were receiving DMs from women who had information. He was either in their DMs being creepy, or they had been sending spicy text messages with him, or even worse, they had met up with him and they had spent some quality time together, if you know what I mean. We found that he had a completely different MO with these women, asking them to do really sketchy stuff that he never even brought up with me, pressuring them for spicy photos, pressuring them into making videos with him, if you know what I mean, and getting creepy and pushy with a lot of them. He constructed different lies for different affairs. Some of them were short-term and some were ongoing for months. I'm pretty sure he was cheating with Tiara for about a year, and she thought he and I were open. We found out from an old acquaintance of his that this is not Seth's first public outing for this behavior, and that his behavior back in 2017 ended on very eerily similar terms. After he had moved to New England for his marriage, he had to move back to our state after being outed. As screenshots and stories rolled in, I began to realize that he was not sharing his HSV2 status with any of these women. I saw a screenshot of him telling someone that he had just been tested and that he was negative for any STIs. And at that point, alarms started blaring in my mind. He was not only manipulating women into spending quality time with him by spreading lies about he and I being in an open relationship, but he was also withholding his health information. This is absolutely predatory, period. Eris then makes another post, and this time much more incriminating, sharing outright that this guy is sketchy in vivid detail. Well, the fallout from the second post is even worse for Seth. At this point, he's losing friends and texting partners in his creepy escapades left and right. We get into contact with the most recent ex, and do you remember how I mentioned Melody earlier in the story? Well, it turns out that he did not break up with Melody when he said he did, and that when he moved back here, she and him were still a couple. So he had been cheating on her with me after all. When I told him we couldn't be flirty or romantic when he was in a relationship, he just decided to pretend he wasn't, but he still later on used the idea that, oh, I made a sacrifice for you and I moved back here, all as some kind of like manipulation tactic with me on many occasions. Now, Melody, fortunately enough, used to live in our city and used to work at the venue that Seth's band was booked to play in the coming week. Well, Melody went ahead and put a word in with the venue, asking them if they really wanted to feature some creep like Seth on their stage. Well, the venue dropped the show, which clued in Seth's bandmates to the situation, who decided to dissolve the band. It's now been over 6 months, and for me, I've had a lot of therapy sessions, and at this point, I'm just trying to move on and recover, and never date another man for the rest of my life. But then, a couple of weeks ago, Eris received some new information. The acquaintance who told us about the ex-wife in New England still follows Seth out of pure hatred, and she shares that he's now posting clues that he's dating someone new. She then provided the Instagram handle of the new partner, let's call her Haley for the sake of the story, and Eris told me that they wanted to reach out, and I said go for it, but just please leave me out of it. Well, it turns out that Seth is back at it with his old patterns. Haley, of course, knew nothing of his public shaming or past behavior. She got the same love bombing and illusion that I got from him, with no pressure for spicy pictures or any other quality time, but instead he was just a sweet and attentive tortured soul with so much love and generosity to give, and he had this sad childhood. But anyways, Eris found out that they've been talking for several months, and Haley lives in New England, and Seth was actually planning to move up there to be with her. And it's like, people, do we see a pattern here or what? She had plane tickets and had planned to come here to visit him the upcoming weekend. Eris provided Haley with all the screenshots she had asked for, and I think even put her in touch with one of the affair partners. Well, feeling empowered with the truth, Haley broke up with Seth and blocked him everywhere. Now, completely unrelated, but we did hear that he had also posted about his car crashing and had borrowed money from one of his last remaining friends to get it fixed. I also hear that he's gone down to part-time at his job and may be on the way to being fired. He works in the music industry and information gets around pretty quickly. I mean, nobody wants a pariah on their payroll. The last I found out from Eris was that Seth is now planning to move to the East Coast to live with his one remaining loyalist pick-me friend, who is the one who paid for his car. So at the end of the day, his life was ruined by cheating on me, and all I had to do was have a very cool friend to make it all happen. My God, this story's amazing. You have one amazing friend who had your back from start to finish. They made this guy's life a living nightmare, and honestly, based on what you described, he absolutely deserved it. This guy was going to so many different people behind your back. I can only imagine how devastating that must have been. Like, not only did you not deserve that, but Seth is a massive piece of garbage, like my God. And obviously all the names in this story are fake, but just think about all the women this guy completely ruined and cheated on and just manipulated in so many different ways. And these are just the women that we know about. God knows how long he'd been doing this and how long he he had been getting away with it. So honestly, I'm so glad you were able to get some kind of revenge from this, because Seth absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled Karen neighbor hates me for literally no reason, as she is actively trying to make up lies to create a divide between me and my husband. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my husband and I recently moved into a new place, and our neighbors are either in their 30s or their 40s. We don't talk to anyone, and we really just keep to ourselves. So the first interaction we had was when the neighbor woman dropped by on her own to see who had moved in next door. And this is what she said to me when I came to the door. "Oh, hi there. I just wanted to see who moved in." She then proceeds to ask me questions about myself. She asked me how old I was, and then would say, "Oh, you look too young to be a homeowner. Are you renting? I thought this was a for sale listing. Are you even married? What do you do for work?" And this entire line of questioning just felt incredibly rude. It felt like she was collecting information and knowledge about us. Now, because she only met me that day, as my husband was not home, she decided to show up again on the weekend. This time, my husband answered the door. She was much nicer to him, and because my husband reported such a different interaction to me, we watched it back on the doorbell camera footage, and I told him there was an obvious difference. She was laughing and touching his arm, and not interrogating him, but instead having a conversation. She even made a joke about how she will make sure to ask him to help her out if she ever needs to do any heavy lifting. And that in and of itself was completely fine. I lightly teased my husband about it, and honestly, it's just there for a bit of context. Over the months, many micro interactions occurred. She would smile and wave and start up small conversations with my husband, and continue to laugh and joke lightheartedly. In fact, she complained about her husband to him a lot, and some of it actually got caught on the doorbell camera. But with me, she would have this sour kind of face. She would ask me nosy questions or try to give me unsolicited advice on everything. For example, while commenting on my dress, she would say, "What a lovely little sheer thing you're wearing," with emphasis on the word sheer and a negative connotation, even though I had on a slip underneath and nothing was showing, and I had a layered long jacket on top of it. Other times she would stop me to try and give me advice on household type of things, like what I could cook for my husband or how to clean my own oven. Now, unfortunately, some of our windows are parallel to each other, and a few times I honestly felt like I caught somebody watching. The blinds would always be closed, so I couldn't see who was doing it, but I assumed that between her and her husband, it was probably her. But anyways, I was never doing anything weird, but things always felt so strange. Fast forward and everything escalated when she recently showed up and rang my doorbell and knocked on my door angrily on top of that. I answered the door, and she immediately launched into telling me off for exposing myself and being indecent in my room by changing with the curtains drawn open, because apparently her husband saw everything. I asked her when this happened because I was always aware of that stuff, if not just straight up paranoid. Well, she didn't want to specify, and she didn't want to talk in general. She just wanted to be exacerbated at me. I didn't even get a word in, and she had a full-blown rant and then just started storming away. Now, of course, I thought of a million responses to yell back after the fact, but in the moment, nothing really came out. I was just so shocked. I think I yelled after her and said something like, "Yeah, screw you, you're being weird for lying." And trust me, I never talk like this, so I don't know where that came from, but it made my husband laugh. I was just so frazzled by the accusation that I blurted out. He then told me just to ignore her. He said if she shows up at the door again, he will be the one to step out and talk to her. I tried to go back to a day where I might have changed my clothing in the open like that, and I honestly couldn't think of anything. Well, just like clockwork, she showed up again, and my husband was the one to answer the door. She was probably not expecting him, and her stupid face looked like it was malfunctioning for a second while she rearranged her expression. She asked him if I had mentioned my transgression to him, and she basically made it seem like I was putting on a show for her husband, and she had caught me in some kind of way. Well, my husband didn't give her the reaction she wanted, because he told her off. She then switched up to saying she was just expressing her concern for his sake, and he told her this conversation is over, and she is not welcome showing up at our door anymore. Well, fast forward, and a few days ago in the morning, she ambushed me outside while I was getting my mail. It was still dark, and she suddenly appeared behind me and started yelling. I get startled easily, and I almost had a heart attack. I dropped all my stuff, including my coffee mug with my very hot latte in it, and I think I blacked out or went autopilot or something like that, because I involuntarily screamed, and I don't remember doing much else. My husband is currently away for work and won't be back until next week, but her husband heard and came rushing outside. But his presence was not reassuring. It just added to the feeling of being ambushed. He then started touching my shoulder and asking if I was was okay and like doing these swinging motions all over my body to get the coffee off. And it honestly freaked me out even more. I then backed away and I said, "Don't touch me." And I don't think I even registered what she yelled at me about. I left the mug and the mess out there and I went inside and I called my husband. I could see them at the end of our drive, talking or arguing or something like that, and they stayed there for a while, occasionally glancing towards our front door. I thought about calling the police and now I regret that I didn't. My husband wants to talk to them when he gets back, but I'm wondering if there is a better course of action here. But anyways, I just wanted to share this story about these crazies who have somehow sucked me into the middle of their sinking marriage, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, this really is insane behavior, because this lady clearly has it out for you. Like, let's look at the facts real quick. She's obviously flirting with your husband, and she's getting all buddy-buddy with him in some kind of like weird, creepy way. Like, just look at the first interaction she had with him. She was touching his arm and joking with him. Meanwhile, she's looking at you as if you're like the spawn of Satan. But it's the fact that she tried to spread some false lie about you and try to turn your husband against you as if you're undressing in the window on purpose, for me is like the nail in the coffin for this lady. There is literally no good excuse for that kind of behavior, and the fact that she tried that in the first place speaks volumes about the type of person that she is. But I know if I was in your shoes and this lady ambushed me out when I was getting the mail, I absolutely would have called the police, especially after her husband basically put his hands on you. Like, that is creepy and that is not okay. So hopefully all of this gets resolved and these people leave you alone, because her behavior is not only incredibly creepy, but it's also something that you and your husband absolutely do not deserve. My entitled neighbor has been stealing my water for several years, but once I discovered the truth, I decided to get some revenge, resulting in him losing all the tenants in his house, as well as him needing to move out, all because he couldn't afford to live there by himself. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So I live in Asia and I just purchased a new house. Now, the previous owners were family friends who needed cash urgently, and they haven't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. So I got it for a great price in the middle of the capital city. The sale was finalized at the start of this month, and I moved in right afterwards. The house was definitely a fixer-upper, as the previous owners had left mid-renovation, and the main door was locked with just a padlock, not even a door lock itself. The house also had no gate, meaning that anyone could just walk right on it. The first day that I moved in, someone's bike was parked in the garage, so I just parked it on the road on the same day I had the gate installed. Fast forward, and an angry man was knocking on my gate later, and I didn't even bother answering, but through my window I could see him giving up and taking the bike after 15 minutes. So already I wasn't digging this neighborhood. But I didn't have any incidents after that, aside from people not knowing that this was no longer an abandoned house, meaning that my gate was blocked more often than not, but eventually with a no parking sign on my gate, that issue was slowly fixed. Last week, I was having a shower in my bathroom, and I noticed my water pressure was lower than usual. I also heard my next door neighbor's water pump going off. Now, this neighbor, who is an older guy, lived in a 3-story house, the first being the lowest and the one that he lived in. The other 2 floors were rented out to other tenants. This guy wasn't happy about the house being sold and voiced many concerns to the previous owners who were my friends. He was super angry about it, and my friends did warn me about the 6-foot guy with 3 dogs. So with this living situation, a water pump is needed to pump water to the tanks on the roof, since the public supplies pressure is not enough to get it up to 3 stories. Now, I heard the water pump going and immediately I was suspicious. Sure, a coincidence can exist, but it still wouldn't hurt to check it out. I waited till his pump turned off and then turned on different taps in the house, and sure enough, the pressure was back to normal in my house. This then made me even more suspicious, but if he was stealing my water, it also made sense. The water bills had been going up over the years this house wasn't even lived in, but the house also had some water leaks, so it was chalked up to that, even if the bills were too high to be caused by just the leaks themselves. Because at this point, things really started to make sense, because it really did seem like some nefarious things were going on. At some point in the last 3 years, this old guy thought he'd save the cost of paying for water and decided to walk onto the property and is now siphoning water from my lines. I couldn't find exactly where the siphoning water was from, but after checking my pressure multiple times, I was pretty sure. So I sat on it for a few days, thinking if I should confront him, go the legal path, or just let it be. Now, water in my country is very cheap. My total bill, even with washing 3 animals, a car every week, and watering my garden, only costs like $5 per month. And this is even with the neighbor stealing some of it. But it wasn't about how much I was paying, or who was paying for it. It's about entitled old people who think they're deserving of using other people's resources without paying for it, and then getting away with it. It just didn't sit right with me, and I really wanted to teach him a lesson. So what I did was really simple. I turned off my water from all of the main sources. I wouldn't have to break into his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. It was the best way of getting back at him without needing to lift a single muscle. So on Monday, just 4 days ago, I waited till the pump flicked on and turned off the supply. Now, the way the household tank works in my country is that there's a ball valve in the tank which detects the level of water and turns on the pump. If the level doesn't increase, the valve stays open, which electronically sends a signal to the pump to stay on, all the way until the level gets to a point at which the valve closes and also shuts off the pump. However, the level wasn't increasing, and anyone knows that starving a pump of water isn't a good idea. This way, my expectation was that I'd burn out his pump and cause issues with his tenants. Now, what I didn't account for is that his pump running constantly would mess up the fuses by constantly drawing power overnight, and it would absolutely destroy his wiring. If he decided to upgrade his household wiring to a more modern standard, this all would have been prevented, because this house clearly still had 90s era wiring. At around 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard all the residents in the house waking up and talking in hushed voices about why just their house in the neighborhood doesn't have power or water. And this is when I found out about the power part, because the tenants devolved into shouting at their landlord. Our tenant protection laws are also very important, and power and water are classed as essential even on a state level. Cutting those services are grounds for lawsuits, unless due to weather or some kind of unavoidable reason. In this case, the landlord is responsible for keeping the house wiring up to date and in good condition, alongside with the supply of water. So the tenants were not happy, and one of them immediately moved out 2 days later when it was informed that water and power will not be returning the very same day this happened. Both tenants in the 2 floors lodged a complaint with the police, and if a person is in clear breach of the laws, the police have the authority to fine or penalize the person without a court judgment. Now, it can be challenged in court if the person thinks they were unfairly penalized, but they still have to pay the fines and will only be refunded if and when the courts find the fines unlawful. So now the landlord lost both tenants and has to pay a fine of $500, which is a lot of money in our country. He also has to refund the security deposits of both tenants, and he also cannot rent out until both issues are fixed, which will cost him a lot more money. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to his daughter's place since he cannot afford to live alone. The tenants were his only source of income, and he's a retired mechanic, so he has no other form of income. He did also find out why the motor kept drawing power, overloaded the wiring, and burned out. He came by to my gate and asked me if I turned off my water, and I said, "Oh yeah, my tank had a new leak on a pipe," and I turned it off till the next day until the plumber came by to fix the issue. Now, my God, the look on his face was priceless. He kept a straight one, but I just knew he was holding back. He just said, "Oh, okay," and then he went back inside. I'm not sure if he knows that I know, but I don't care because you know what? He can't do anything about it. So now I'm getting a plumber down next week to correct my plumbing and remove any pipes that leave my property. So essentially, I got rid of my water issue and a neighbor who could potentially be a pain in the neck, all by simply flicking a tap off. And that probably was the best way of solving this issue that I ever could have come up with. Wow, this guy was a straight up criminal. He was stealing your power and your water. Like, that is some insane level of distrust and like corruption. I just can't imagine trying to do that to somebody. And the amount of time and effort that had to have taken just to make that happen, like, that is crazy, and there is no good excuse for that. So good for you for getting back at this guy and getting some solid revenge, because this guy was stealing from you in a way that is super unacceptable. And I'm so glad that you got back at him in the way that you did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for requesting that my teacher not partner me with my deadbeat father's daughter? Because right now I'm being shunned by his daughter and being treated as if I was bullying her in some kind of way. And right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my father walked out on my mom when she was pregnant with me. They were married for like 5 years at that point, but he was cheating a lot. My mom, who was trying to divorce him, went through a living nightmare because they had just picked up and moved. And you know what? He never even met me. He didn't show up at court for their divorce or for custody or even for any kind of child support. He went to jail 3 times for failure to pay child support and for trying to avoid child support by quitting his jobs and not declaring his new place of employment. And to this day, I still haven't even met him. But around a year ago, he moved back with his family, which are the affair partner and their kids. He has a daughter that's 5 months younger than me, a son about a half a year younger, and some other kids who are also younger, but I don't know any of their ages. I only know the older 2 ages because of school and sharing some classes with his daughter. She has tried to connect with me, but I told her I wasn't interested as we are not family. family. Simply put, I don't want to know the affair family. Even though she was upset and cried a little in front of me, she didn't give up. And when we returned to our classes in August, she was suddenly in 4 of mine instead of 1 like last year. So I went to our teacher, who assigns a lot of group stuff, and I asked her to never pair me with her. I explained the reason why, and she was surprised but agreed it would be for the best to avoid hostility during the project, and especially if others are working with us. Well, 2 separate times now, she has tried to claim me as a partner, or make me a part of her group in some kind of way. The first time as her solo partner, and the second time in a bigger group. But both times our teacher refused. This eventually made her realize what I had done. So she told her parents. They went to the principal and demanded a meeting with me and my mom. Now, my mom went to the meeting, but she left me out of it, and explained why to the principal, and told him that she didn't think the first time I meet my father should be when he wants to berate me for not working with his daughter. They tried to say I was bullying their daughter, and that I should be facing suspension, or be forced to make it up to her in some kind of way, through some kind of like buddy program. Well, the principal didn't take any of this seriously, but his daughter and son now stare at me a lot more in school the last couple of weeks, ever since that meeting. And a couple of her friends said that I was a jerk for embarrassing her like that, and not getting to know her in any kind of way. So am I the jerk for shutting this down before it could even take off? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk. This is so weird. Why on earth does she not get the hint that no, you don't want anything to do with her? Like, that is so annoying, it's not even funny. And it's especially frustrating that her parents, including your dad, were like, oh, she needs to be suspended, or they need to do some kind of like buddy program. And it's like, no, that's not happening. That's weird, incredibly intrusive, and thank God the principal's like, yeah, I'm not taking any of this seriously. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here, because everybody's behavior, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. My roommate is frustrated and very angry with me after he slept through his alarm, despite the fact that I woke him up like he asked me to do. And now, after not doing well on his medical school exam, he's blaming me and saying that this is my fault. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not. Here's what happened. So me and my roommate, who we will call Justin, are medical students. We've been living together as roommates for 2 years, and we live in a hostel. Last week were our final year exams, and it was absolutely a nightmare. We were surviving on 2 to 3 hours of sleep daily, fueled by coffee and energy drinks, and yeah, I know it's not healthy, but there's no other way to pass. On the last day of exams, Justin was unusually exhausted. At around 1 o'clock in the morning, he decided to sleep and told me to wake him up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you know what? I agreed. However, by 2:30 in the morning, I was completely done. My brain was shutting down, my notes were getting blurry, and I knew if I stayed up any longer, I would pass out. So I decided to wake Justin up early. I woke him up at 2:30 in the morning, and I told him the time and suggested that he set an alarm so he wouldn't oversleep. So Justin sat upright, he rubbed his eyes, and he nodded and said, okay. And I was like, okay, well, don't forget to set the alarm, and then almost instantly fell asleep. Well, we both woke up at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and Justin freaked out, accusing me of not waking him up as promised. Well, I reminded him that I did wake him up at 2:30 in the morning and suggested that he set an alarm. Well, Justin said that he was too sleepy to comprehend what was happening and insisted that I should have stayed up to wake him up at 3, or at least made sure that he was fully awake before sleeping. Well, fast forward, and Justin's exam didn't go well, and now he's blaming me. Now, I understand the frustration, but I really think that he's being unfair. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk, because Justin is absolutely responsible for himself. If he wanted you to wake him up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, well, congratulations, he got woken up 30 minutes early, and he was given clear instructions to set an alarm. And as someone who went to college and had a lot of stressful exams, it goes without saying that all of that is on your shoulders. If you want to pass and get all your exams taken care of, and feel somewhat prepared and like ready for what you need to do, then that falls on your shoulders and nobody else. So the fact that he was trying to shift that blame over to you and make it your fault that he didn't do what he needed to do to try and wake up on time when he needed to get up, that in my opinion is super toxic. There's no good excuse for that, because at the end of the day, he is an adult. This is his responsibility, regardless if you guys do share classes. Like, no one's gonna carry him across the finish line of becoming a doctor, especially if he's gonna shift the blame like this over something that he himself had full control over. And yeah, I've been woken up at like early hours in the morning and not been sure what's going on, but he should have planned all of this better. Like, there's no good excuse in this situation. But also, why is he himself not setting an alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning? Why rely on somebody else when you have so much on the line? Like, is it really that hard to set an alarm instead of blaming your friend for not doing it for you? Like, that's so stupid and irresponsible. You're not his parent, and you're definitely not his mom. So the fact that he was like, oh, I can't believe you didn't stay up with me and make sure I was awake. It's like, dude, dude, what are you on about? I literally woke you up like you asked me to do. So no, you're not the jerk here because honestly, Justin sounds incredibly entitled. Because if he really wanted to wake up at a specific time, then he should have been the one to set the alarm. My mom tricked me into giving up my last name that belonged to my dad who passed away so that I would take on my stepdad's last name with the explicit promise that she would change my last name back to my dad's name when I turned 18. Well, now that I'm 18, she is taking a big step backwards, asking me what the rush is and why it was such a big deal in the first place. And now I'm incredibly angry and I lashed out in a way that I haven't done ever in my life. And I'm left wondering if I might be the jerk in this situation because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male and my dad passed away when I was 6 years old. My parents had separated at the time and mom was already dating her husband at that point. They decided to get married and give me a family unit after dad passed away. Then within a few months, they were sitting me down to say they wanted to change my last name to their last name. My mom said it was important so that her husband could do his part to take care of me without any kind of issues concerning my last name. I told her I wanted to keep my last name and her husband wasn't my dad and I didn't want to lose more of my dad. I even cried about how important it was to me. Well, she and her husband promised me repeatedly that they would pay for me to change my name back as soon as I was 18 years old, and it was only to make life easier when I was younger, and that people would make life more difficult for her husband to do certain things with me. Now, I always regretted it, but believed for a long time that they would follow through. But about a year ago, when I mentioned it to my mom, she told me there was no rush, and I told her I wanted the name change before graduation so I could have it on my diploma. There was a lot of back and forth, and her husband decided to add his own comments of basically saying, well, what's the big deal anyways? He'd also say that his name had been my name longer than my dad's last name had been used, but I said I didn't care, and I wanted my actual name back that was my actual dad's name too. Eventually, my mom admitted that she wasn't going to pay for me to change it back, and she believed I should keep her husband's name because he raised me for so much longer and had apparently done so much for me in my life. But I said no. She told me it wasn't my choice, and I told her that she would not stop me once I turned 18. I also told her that she was never going to have a good relationship with me ever again after lying to me and letting me down. She then called me overdramatic, but I spent the rest of my time living with them very cold and somewhat hostile, and I just shut them out as much as I could. I eventually moved out of their house and in with my cousin, and I filed the day after my 18th birthday to change my name back. My court date is coming up very soon, and my mom knows about it because of extended family. She has tried to forbid me from changing my last name back, and she even lied and said her husband adopted me too, so I couldn't. But I confirmed that didn't happen. Eventually, she told me I was disrespecting them as my parents. But I told her then to shut up because she's a liar, and I don't care what she has to say about this because her opinion does not matter here. My mom then started crying, and I told her good. I told her that she lost me over this and it was her own fault. I told her I would have never said yes to the change had I known, and I told her to suck it up because she was not in charge of me anymore. Some extended family are backing my mom because of how I spoke to her, and mom told me I had no reason to speak to her like I did. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all, and you have every right to be upset. Your mom literally lied to you. She tricked you into changing your last name and then said, oh yeah, we'll pay for it when you're 18 to change it back. And now that you're 18 years old and you're about to graduate, she's running it back like, oh, what's the rush? It's not that big of a deal. It's like, what are you talking about? You said that you would let me change it back, and you said you would pay for it as well. Like that was the one connection you had to your dad, and guess what? He's dead. And now she's like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like that is so crazy toxic, it's not even funny. So yes, I would be upset as well, and I don't blame you for changing your last name, or for even snapping at your mom like this, because she straight up lied to you just to get you to change your name when you were a kid. And then for her to give false promises that she knew she would never deliver on, in my opinion, is something that is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for yelling at my mom after my brother ran away after they kicked him out of the house? Because right now, everybody's upset with me suddenly, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my family is pretty religious and conservative. I have my own opinions, but I always keep my mouth shut. I just avoid my family for the most part, and my brother, who's 20 years old, still lives at home, and well, ever since he was a kid, he's always been a little bit out there. He is very open-minded and artistic as well, so he's always pissing off our parents and my sisters. He was a really good volleyball player in high school, but quit his senior year just to spite our parents, so I'm sure you can tell exactly what kind of guy he is. But also, he's the only boy, so our parents just keep letting it go. Anyways, he recently acted in some silly amateur film for one of his friends, and in it, he kisses this is a boy. And this is something that I genuinely just don't care about. Anyways, the film wasn't a secret, and it was posted publicly. So someone we know came across it, and it was sent to our parents, who ended up kicking him out. My younger sister and her husband offered to take him in, but my brother left not even a week later because our brother-in-law was being a jerk to him about the film. Now, no one knows where he is, and everybody is pissed off and incredibly angry, and I only know he's alive because he texted me a few times. My mom calls the whole family over almost every day to play the blame game, and yesterday it was my turn, and she was basically saying that as the oldest, I didn't do my job, and I led him astray because I failed as a sister or some other crap like that. But after she said that, I got so angry that I told her to shut up and that this was her fault more than it was mine. Now, this doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's still super disrespectful in our family, so everyone was upset with me for yelling at mom and for breaking her heart even more than what my brother did. I told them to stop acting like victims and that they had better pray that he decides to see any of us ever again, and then I just left. Now, I feel better, but the entire family is angry with me, especially now that my brother isn't around to take their anger. I wish I could run away too, but unfortunately, I have responsibilities tying me here. So I'm wondering if I'm the jerk and if I should apologize. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this really is not your fault. The fact that your parents, who are the ones who kicked him out of the house, are now somehow going around trying to point the blame at other people as to why he's run away and is not coming back, that is crazy in my opinion, and absolutely not your fault. You're not the one that put him out on the street. That absolutely falls on your mom and your dad. And also, in my opinion, I think it's so weird that she's trying to be like, wow, you led him astray as a big sister. You didn't do a good enough job. This is your fault. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Are you not his mom? If anybody led him astray and screwed him over, it was you. And I can only speak for myself in this situation, but if someone's gonna make up this kind of garbage about me and somehow try to make me the new scapegoat of the family since my brother's now out of the picture, at that point, I would really speak my mind to these people, because your parents sound incredibly immature and very unhealthy. And the fact that they want to blame you for your brother running off, in my opinion, that is incredibly toxic. My boyfriend's ex spent the night in my bed with my boyfriend ignoring all of my calls the entire night. And even though the next morning I'm considering breaking up with him, my boyfriend claims that nothing happened between the two of them and that he was just comforting her over the fact that they broke up. But right now, I feel very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm extremely hurt, but to my boyfriend's credit, he was very upfront about everything. He texted me immediately the morning after to tell me everything about this. Now, for context, my boyfriend, let's call him James, broke up with his ex-girlfriend, who we will call Whitney, about 2 years ago. They chose to stay friends, and this has caused some issues between James and I, mostly because Whitney just can't get over the breakup. She thinks her and James are soulmates, and she just refuses to accept that he stopped being in love with her. So a conversation they will very often have is James literally spending hours going over the logic of why he broke up with her. He tries to reassure her since they're still friends and she's still hurting, but I have witnessed some of these conversations, and he's loving but firm. I suspect some of you will say there's something going on, but there really isn't. James is definitely over her. James and I moved in together 2 weeks ago, and this has caused Whitney to be worse than ever. She relapsed with the depression and the crying fits. They're happening constantly now. I went back to my parents' place this weekend because I had to pack my car full of some more of my things, and I spent the Saturday there. Now, Whitney must have known this because Saturday night, she showed up at our place crying and wailing and honestly just giving the works. We have a doorbell camera, and I got a notification as soon as she was at the door. Now, I didn't see it right away, but as soon as I saw it, I texted and called James, and I checked our indoor camera to see what was going on. Now, this is where James definitely messed up, and he even admits to this, because he did not text me the entire night while Whitney was there. So all I knew was that she showed up. I checked our indoor camera that we keep in the living room by the front door, and it was completely turned off. And this is normal. We only turn it on when we're away from home. But I was extremely upset and distraught as I was imagining the absolute worst. I trust James, but I just didn't understand why he wouldn't answer my calls, and he admits that it was horrible of him. Now, I was ready to break up with him Sunday morning, but he texted me and immediately let me know that Whitney had come over. He said it sounds really bad, but she spent the night, but nothing happened. And he set up the indoor camera in the bedroom to prove it. Now, I didn't want to believe him, but I did watch the footage, and even though it shows both of them laying in bed, it's true that Whitney was just crying while James was consoling her. Now, there are some things that he did that bother me a lot. At some point, he kissed her forehead, and he hugged her and held her close several times, and I'm honestly speechless at that. But I understand he knew there was a camera on him the entire time, and he knew I would see him doing that. So I guess guess he doesn't see that as cheating. So basically, James is asking me for understanding and for forgiveness. I have the proof that nothing happened, but I am still hurt. This isn't how I imagine us starting our life together. So honestly, what are some healthy steps that we can make for our relationship? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, this story's insane in my opinion. There is no way you're possibly letting James get away with this. Like seriously, this is not okay. Whitney is obviously trying to get back with your boyfriend, and you're just trying to be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing happened. He set up the camera. And it's like, no, you don't know that at all. The cameras were off and he only set it up after the fact. Like this is crazy because clearly James and Whitney are not over each other. If he actually cared about you, he would have been like, wait a second, why are you at my house? You need to leave. I need you to go home. Whitney having these depressive episodes and crying fits. Like what in the world is going on? Her screaming and crying about not being in a relationship with James is just a ploy for her to literally get back in bed with him. And guess what? She did that, but in your bed. Because at the end of the day, you have literally no proof that nothing happened. Because in my opinion, I think something absolutely happened. And who knows how long it's been happening too. Because this behavior is absolutely a deal breaker for me. And if James can't stand his ground and have a backbone and tell Whitney to get lost, then there is no way I would ever see this relationship working out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not letting my partner make a fake proposal while me and him were on vacation in Paris? Because after I shut down his idea in front of the Eiffel Tower, he now seems incredibly upset. And at this point, I'm not entirely sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner and I went on vacation last week for our 2-year anniversary, and we just got back 2 days ago. Now, it was a fantastic, amazing, and romantic vacation, all up to the point when my partner suggested that we ask a stranger to take a picture of us and a fake proposal in front of the Eiffel Tower. When he asked this, my heart started beating so fast. I immediately assumed he was saying fake proposal as a ruse for a real proposal, which is not something that we talked about yet. I think I just said, wait, what do you mean? And he said that proposal pictures in this spot were really popular and we should take the opportunity while we can. I said I wasn't really interested in a fake proposal picture and that I thought it was weird that he would suggest that. Well, we then moved on pretty quickly and then we went to dinner. When we got back to our hotel that evening, I asked him about it, since it had been on my mind and I could tell that I had actually really upset him. So I asked him explicitly, were you planning on actually proposing to me and I just ruined it? And he said no, that he doesn't think we're ready for that step. And for the record, I completely agree. Our relationship was long distance for the last 8 months, and I am planning on moving in with him when my lease is up in January. He said that he always thought the proposal picture in front of the Eiffel Tower was really romantic, and that he's worried whenever he actually does propose, it won't be as romantic as Paris. So he wanted to get the picture while he could. Well, I apologized, but told him that I was only interested in actual proposal pictures, and that I would love them whenever and wherever it happened. He was pretty crestfallen since this conversation, and I really felt like I genuinely ruined something for him. I called some friends when we got home, and I got some mixed advice. Some agreeing that it was a really odd request, and some saying that I should have just taken the fake proposal photo, which would have been no harm done. So am I the jerk for not taking the photo with him? Because right now, I really feel like I disappointed my partner. No, I don't think you're the jerk. Like, this really is a weird request, and in my opinion, it's not entirely appropriate. Like, sure, it seems like he's kind of like future-proofing the situation, but wouldn't you want the photo of like the actual proposal itself? Why not just plan for that instead of having like a placeholder picture? Like, that doesn't make any sense, and it seems kind of weird in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk, because that really is a weird request. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Entitled customers make my job so hard, especially when they try to make custom orders at our restaurant for stuff that is absolutely not on our menu. And now, after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I don't understand customers who can't just accept if a restaurant has a policy, or how restaurants want to serve their food. I've been to a restaurant before where they had mushrooms in the restaurant for one dish, but I wanted a different dish and asked if I could substitute the broccoli my dish came with for sauteed mushrooms instead. Well, the server politely told me no, and I accepted it and just chose another option. I didn't make it hard for the server or the managers or even the kitchen staff or literally anybody. I didn't tell the staff how it's such a simple request and it doesn't make sense for them to just not do it. I didn't say how other restaurants can do it, so why can't they? It's how the restaurant wants to serve their food. If I don't like it, I can choose to not eat there. I would not sit there and give the server and the manager a hard time. People open restaurants to serve food the way they want to serve it. I'm so tired of people thinking that they can substitute everything or modify everything or build dishes however they want just because the restaurant has some ingredients in the store. her. It doesn't matter if it's a simple request. If the restaurant says they can't do it, then they can't do it. If a restaurant told me they can't substitute broccoli for carrots, even if it didn't make sense to me why they couldn't, I wouldn't question it. If they say they can't, then they can't. End of story. Well, this one lady did that today. We explained to her politely that we cannot accommodate the substitution that she wanted. Yes, her request was not a crazy ask, but we simply just don't serve it that way. We don't offer that substitution. That's why it's not on the menu. We don't have a button in the system for it, and the kitchen staff were instructed to not do that long before she even became a customer here. She said that we were being difficult for not doing it for her, and she's never been to a restaurant that never accommodated this substitution for her. We explained to her that not all restaurants operate the same way. We even suggested a similar dish for her that did have the ingredients that she wanted, but she refused and said if we didn't accommodate her, she would just leave, but then she wouldn't leave. And trust me, I wanted to tell her to just leave, but I couldn't. I was hoping she would get up and leave on her own, but she stayed and continued to argue with me about how difficult I was being. She said we have the ingredients in the restaurant, so why can't we just do it for her? She started saying how she's from a bigger city and how she came to do a nice big story on us, and now she won't do it because we can't accommodate her. She then said that she won't recommend anyone to us and how she's uncomfortable because we told her no, and how it's bad service and bad business. At this point, I really don't care. If you're gonna go to restaurants and act like restaurants have to fulfill your every wish just because they have the ingredients in their kitchen to do so, and argue with the servers and the manager, just get out and never come back. We don't need your good story that you were probably never even going to write for us anyway. I hate people who threaten restaurants with bad reviews, because seriously, go ahead and do it then. Don't sit here and threaten me with it just so you can try and get your way. We have plenty of loyal customers who are perfectly happy with how we serve our food. We don't need mean customers. We actually would rather you never come back. And don't recommend your friends to us either, because if they're just like you, then we do not want them here either. Okay, I absolutely agree with the original poster here. People who act like this at restaurants are so annoying. Like seriously, there's a menu for a reason. These are the things we can make, and that is all you're gonna get. You're not gonna get some extra special meal that only you can have. Like that's really annoying, and honestly, anybody who acts like that is a piece of garbage. Especially when they're like, oh, I was gonna give you a good review, but now I'm not gonna do it. And it's like, okay, go ahead and write your bad review. At the end of the day, you won't come back, and I will still have a job. Like one bad review is not gonna take down a restaurant, idiot. Like what are you thinking? So yes, I completely agree with this story, because people who act like this are absolutely obnoxious. Am I the jerk for telling my brother that his new girlfriend is no longer welcome at family events after she's done some sketchy things to offend the family? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother's new girlfriend, who we will call Avery, lived with her ex for 2 months before being kicked out and ended up back at her parents' house. She had known my brother, who we will call Josh, for a few years apparently, and he moved out of our parents' house to rent them an apartment together. Not only did he drive to another state to get her, but it's been over 2 months, and she still doesn't have a job to help with any of the bills. But my issue isn't really her not having a job, but instead, it's the things she's said and done over time. Mind you, this is the very first relationship he has ever been in, and the first girl he's ever brought around the family in general. Now, I'm a 25-year-old male, and I've got to know her over time, and she has been getting on my nerves, but I wanted to post here to get opinions if it's just me or not. It's been over 2 months of them living together, and she still hasn't applied to any jobs. I'm able to overlook that since it's not my place to say anything. However, she's also made a nasty comment about our cousin wearing a bikini, refuses to speak or even acknowledge our parents, and even lied to my brother about having no contact with her parents, when if you look on social media, that's an obvious lie, and they do in fact keep in touch and have a good online relationship. The final straw for me was when I texted him and didn't get a response. So I called him just for him to say, wait, why is your number not saved? And it's then that I heard laughing in the background. Now here's the thing, I've had the same number for years, and we were texting days before this, so it gave me a funny feeling. So I texted him yesterday asking him to not bring her to Thanksgiving dinner if she's going to refuse to speak to my parents, who have been nothing but welcoming to her. And also, she is not welcome over to my house anymore. Now here's the thing, my parents are aware of my thoughts and feelings about it, and they don't want her ignoring them. My dad is neutral and wants him to learn on his own, and my mom doesn't really favor her much, but doesn't want him to cut her off for speaking up. So I was asked to talk to Josh about it, and I have, but since it was brought up, nothing's been said from him about the situation. And no, he has not acknowledged it. It makes family gatherings awkward if one person isn't going to acknowledge everybody else, and my mom calls me upset about it often, leaving me with no direction on what to do, besides asking him to not bring her around if she's going to be rude and a walking red flag. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk, but honestly, I think this might might be one of those situations where no matter how right you may be, you're still going to be seen as the bad guy. Because I see exactly what you're talking about. Avery comes off as incredibly manipulative, and the fact that she deleted your phone number from your brother's phone after you've had this phone number for a long time is like really sketchy in my opinion. And the fact that they're laughing about it in the background, like they knew what they were doing. Avery was well aware that they wanted to do this, and the fact that there was some kind of reaction honestly speaks volumes to the type of person Avery is. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, but I think you might be the only one that stands against this, because Avery's behavior is coming off as a little bit too sketchy, and that is something that I definitely would not want to ignore. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go on vacation with my friends, all because of the way they micromanage all of our expenses? Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old male, and I have a group of 5 friends from university who are around the same age as me. For the past 2 years, we've gone on vacation together. First, we went to Mexico, and then last year, we went to Egypt. We've always had a great time, and we get along well. However, when it comes to sharing the cost, I find myself struggling. And it's not the group that has an issue, but instead, it's me who has the problem. To provide some context, we met at university 9 years ago and have been working for the last 5 years. Our university was ranked number 1 in the country at the time, and we all landed jobs just a month after graduation. So I mention that to illustrate that we are financially secure. I know for a fact that each of us earns between $80,000 to $100,000 annually. In terms of vacation cost, I typically spend around $3,000 for each trip, which is more than what my friends spend since I'm more comfortable with spending. Additionally, I'm aware that the vacation money we receive amounts to at least double of what any of them has spent on these trips. So this is the problem that I have. Every night they ask for a check. They start checking off items for everyone and then make that person pay exactly that amount. To me, that's embarrassing. Getting nasty looks from the waitress who doesn't make in a day what these people make in an hour, waiting there for 10 to 15 minutes while they argue about who had what, and then starting to count bills and coins to pay. I suggested we split the bill 5 ways, but they just don't want to do that. They have mentioned that I'm the only one who drinks alcohol with dinner, and that it's not fair if they have to pay extra for it. And we're talking about maybe $2. I even offered to pay more, but they still refuse because some are not even big eaters and don't think they should pay extra for others. So basically, it's 4 versus 1. To make matters worse, they spend every night comparing Uber bills because maybe I paid a couple of dollars less for the ride. So now they're planning on having a trip for this year, and it could be the last one, as some of them want to start families, but I'm thinking of saying no, I just can't do this anymore. I enjoy our trips, but getting a pay request for $3 because I had a couple glasses of rum that someone else paid for at a hotel just honestly messes with my mood. But also, I'm the only one who has a problem with this, and I want to ask if maybe I'm the jerk, or if this is really just a strange way to handle finances. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the way your friends are acting is really strange, and honestly, it sounds super annoying. And it's also seemingly over everything, like even down to the dollars and coins that you might be spending. Like seriously, who cares? Like just let it go. Now the original poster went on to say that they can't split the bill because most places they visit won't do that. So I kind of understand where you're coming from, but also it seems like out of everything that might go wrong on this trip, if this is the only thing that's frustrating you, then this really is not that big of a deal. Like if I was in your shoes, I would be weighing the pros and cons, and if this really is the only bad thing that happens, and everything else is like an amazing trip and you have so much fun, then I would just plan accordingly. I would say, okay, anytime we buy something, it's gonna be a hassle, and just be ready to pay whatever you need to pay, with maybe like small bills at the ready. I think just a few small adjustments really could make a big difference here. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for feeling this way, but I do think it's completely doable. I'm tired of customers who are immune compromised from coming to our restaurant and making demands that we cannot accommodate, because if they really cannot be around people, then maybe going to a restaurant is not the best idea. Here's what happened. So I had a guest come in asking to sit outside in 50-degree weather with rain on the way in less than an hour, all because they were immune compromised. Well, they then got pretty upset when I told them that we had no service outside and that we would not be able to sit them somewhere devoid of people. Now, not to sound like a jerk, but a restaurant is the last place that you should be if you're immune compromised. You know how many chefs, managers, cooks, dishwashers, bussers, hosts, food runners, bartenders, and servers come in sick? How many managers will tell us workers to just pop an aspirin and come in if you can't get your shift covered? Or how many people have sick kids that will carry those germs to work? Or how many people go outside with the flu, or a cold, or even a bad cough, or without even washing their hands properly? How many of us just take the train, the bus, the Uber, a taxi, or a Lyft to work, all packed and filled with germs? Not to mention that even on a kind of slow night, there are no areas devoid of people in the restaurant. Do you know how many times my coworkers have told me they're feeling sick today. I've worked at a lot of restaurants across the country, and we come in sick all the time. Guests come in sick all the time. And I'm not trying to scare anyone for saying that they're dumb for wanting to take precautions, but a restaurant in the busiest part of the city on a Saturday at 7 just might be the place you shouldn't be going out to. Okay, honestly, I completely agree with the original poster. If you really are immune compromised and you can't be around people, demanding accommodation at a restaurant that literally just can't do what you're asking of them, that in my opinion is super weird and super toxic. And sure, you're not trying to downplay people for taking precautions, but if you really are immune compromised, then maybe get some takeout. Like, don't go to a restaurant and be like, can we sit next to nobody on this busy Saturday night? It's like, no, I can't do that. That's like literally impossible. And you can't sit outside in the rain because, yeah, I'm not going to serve that. So yes, I completely agree with the original poster because customers who act like that are incredibly annoying. I own an exotic car rental company, and I honestly hate how fake all of my clients are, despite the fact that I make a lot of money off of them. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I own an exotic rental car company in one of the largest markets for it in the United States. Along with cars, I rent out boats, houses, and even watches. And on average, I profit about $40,000 to $50,000 a month. I love what I do because it lets me own very nice things without having to pay for them out of my own pocket. But right now, I've begun to despise my clientele because the rapper in the G-Wagon you see on Instagram is renting it from me for $899 a day. Then they film their music video on my boat for $3,000 a day and then pretend to live in my house that I rent to them for $1,000 a night. And the iced out paddock he's wearing is another $1,500 a day to rent. The finance guru in the 911 you see on TikTok with a full gold Rolex has rented both from me on a weekly basis for $2,500. And sure, I get it. Money attracts money, and renting things to help show off help further their businesses. But it also makes me despise them. When I originally started, I wanted to cater to the car enthusiast. I wanted to rent to the dude who just turned 50 and wanted to rent a Lamborghini to celebrate, or the guy who wanted a classy car for his wedding. But unfortunately, that's not where the money is. It's way too easy to make so much money off of renting to people who are just trying to flex, which is why I expanded into renting yachts, houses, and watches. A couple months ago, we had a client rent a Ferrari 488 and post on Instagram in the car with $1,000 in singles. He left an ATM receipt in the car from the transaction, and it showed he had a $40 available balance after withdrawing $1,000. And I honestly felt really bad for the guy. No amount of flexing on Instagram is going to fill whatever void you're trying to fill. So please, just remember that everything you see online is extremely fake. And unfortunately, that's now expanded into the real world too. Okay, this is honestly so relieving to hear because sometimes when you look at those posts on Instagram or even like videos on TikTok, it makes you wonder how these people have that kind of money. Like, I don't know about you, but it is rough out here. So whenever I see posts like that, I'm always like, oh man, I am just not doing good enough financially. So this story to me is really reassuring that maybe I'm not doing as bad as I think I am, because most of these supposed financial gurus are just lying out of their teeth. They're renting these cars, they're renting the yachts, they're renting the expensive jewelry and all this other stuff. So if anything, these people are just playing dress up for thousands of dollars a day. And it's all for what? Internet points? Like getting a number up on your post? Like, that's so weird and stupid. But also, you know what? If it helps your business grow, then fine, go ahead and do it. Like, if you have the expendable income and this is gonna help you go to like that next level, then why not rent out a G-Wagon and see if your business can go from there? But overall, I find this incredibly hilarious because nobody in their right mind, especially nowadays, could ever afford any of the stuff being mentioned here. An entitled Karen calls the police on me after I parked my car in a handicap spot that she demanded she deserved more than me. But after the police show up and investigate the situation, they find out that not only is her license and her plates completely suspended, but this Karen is also using a handicap sticker illegally. And I've honestly never been happier to watch somebody's car get towed away in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm backed into a handicap spot outside of a big box store. I just barely put the car in park and had yet to put my tag in the window when another car pulled into the hatch mark area next to me. That's when the entitled Karen of this story gets out of the car and starts cussing me out because now she needs to park illegally because of people like me who park in handicapped spots without a tag. I let her go on for a good 30 seconds while I finished taking my hearing aids out as they were starting to hurt my ears, and I then opened my door and I looked directly at her while I took the tag from the door and I hung it on the mirror. And the look of shock on this entitled Karen's face was absolutely priceless, and I only wish I could have taken a picture of it. She then walks away, ranting and raving about how much of a jerk I was for letting her go on like that, and then telling me that it's all my fault. I then just go into the store, but she is still screaming and hollering at me. Now, about what, you might be asking? Honestly, I'm just glad I don't know. I go on about my shopping, I check out, and then I head back out to the car. As I'm approaching, I see 2 police cars parked in front of my car with 2 officers chatting. Thinking nothing of it, I put my bags in the trunk and close it. One of the officers then asks if this is my car, and I say to him, yeah, is there a problem? Well, they then explained they received a call from an irate shopper who stated the person driving this car was harassing her. And at this point, I started laughing so hard that I couldn't breathe, with the officers staring at me incredibly confused. I then had the pleasure of telling them my story. And you know what? They laughed as well. And they said that my story lines up better with what they saw on the store's cameras, as well as what the associate at the door said. They then ran my information, verified that my handicap tag was valid, and said I was good to go. Now, the officer of the police car that was in front of me never moved their car, so I couldn't leave, but I sure didn't mind. I wanted to see what happened. I then watched as a lady turned white as a ghost when she came out of the doors to see her car being strapped down on the back of a tow truck. But her white then went to red as she was handed a number of citations. As it turned out, her car had suspended plates, her license was suspended, and the handicap tag displayed had been void for being used illegally. And as a side note, for those of you who may not know, you can only park in the designated spot when the person who was issued the tag is in the vehicle, and the person doesn't need to be the driver, meaning that if you're found in violation of this, the tag may be suspended or revoked. This entitled Karen then stood around screaming at anyone who had the misfortune of being in her vicinity, but I thankfully got away from that, and I drove out of the parking lot with a giant grin on my face. Wow, what is wrong with that lady? Like, seriously. She not only decided to pick a fight with someone parking in a handicap spot, but also literally put a target on her back for the police to be like, wait a second, you're the one in the wrong. Her license is suspended, the plates are suspended, the tag is being used illegally. Like, this Karen hit all the marks of being a total moron while also literally sabotaging her life. But you know what? I love the way the original poster handled this, because they were calm and collected throughout this entire ordeal, which is a lot better than how I would have handled it, trust me. Because this Karen was completely out of line, and it is so satisfying seeing that karma absolutely took her down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for requesting an explanation from my sister-in-law after she literally spent $1,000 of my money without my consent? Because right now I'm still incredibly angry, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this past summer, I underwent a lengthy surgical procedure that required several weeks in the hospital out of town and several months of follow-up. I needed to have someone stay and help me over those first 8 weeks, so I rented a large house on the water with a pool. And I did that because I wanted those who came to help me to have some kind of enjoyable environment. Eventually, family and friends offered to help, and a schedule was made. Basically, people made it a vacation and met my needs while enjoying the amenities. And my late husband's sister was the first to take advantage of the great setup. She stayed a week, and she arrived while I was still in the hospital, and then hustled out as fast as possible and left the day that I was discharged. She didn't even bother to visit me while I was in the hospital because she didn't like the traffic. She effectively did nothing for me, but also enjoyed the beautiful home and the amenities. Prior to the surgery, I let her know that I was leaving $1,000 in the home to be used exclusively for items needed for the house, as well as paper and laundry products and cleaning supplies. And this also included any needs my dog might need, who's also staying in the house when I was discharged. Well, imagine my shock when I discovered that she spent all the money in 6 short days. Hurt and feeling used, I decided to table the issue till I was feeling better. As I was recovering, I was not texting or answering calls, and my phone was off. I needed all of my energy for my literal survival. There was no consideration for what I was going through, and thus no communication for me. Weeks later, her husband made a feeble attempt to admonish me for not texting and calling her to make her feel better, but saying sorry, not sorry was my response to this entitled one. Nearly 3 months later, I was back home and she came to visit, and after a pleasant visit, I asked her what made her think that it was okay to spend all the money I had left for use of the house. She said she had given me receipts for her expenses, and this is true, but she began charging me before she even left home. Body wash, breakfast, chewing gum, and then she stated she used it to stock up the kitchen, and I asked, okay, for who? Since it was bits of leftovers, who was she leaving these for? She had several notes stating that she used her own credit card and no receipts were available, listing food and gas, despite the fact that she has an electric car. Then she stated that I had gifted it to her, but I reminded her of my instructions and I blatantly stated that no, I didn't. Then she stated it was her expense account, and I asked her why she thought she was entitled to an expense account and what made her think that I would provide one. When I originally rented the house, she shared that she had bragged to friends about her wonderful vacation planned at my summer rental. And trust trust me, I fully realize that this bridge is burned, though I cannot imagine what difference it honestly could have made. So am I the jerk for bringing this up in the first place? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk for bringing this up, because honestly, I would have done the same thing. Who in their right mind would spend over $1,000 on food? And this is in 6 days we're talking about. Like seriously, you could spend like what, $100 and still have plenty of food left over, especially if you know what you're doing and you're making your own stuff. Like your sister-in-law absolutely took advantage of you, and they took advantage of the fact that you were having surgery and that you weren't even at the house at the time. Like this lady's a piece of garbage. She literally spent all of your money in 6 days. Like, are you kidding me right now? And then she has the audacity to turn around and try and make this your fault. It's like, what are you talking about? She tried to make up all this stuff of like, oh, you gave that money to me. It was a gift. Then she tried to claim it for like food and gas, even though she has an electric car. Like this lady is so full of garbage, it's not even funny. So no, you're not the jerk for bringing this up. Your sister-in-law is a garbage human being. And the fact that she did this in some kind of weird attempt to like take advantage of you and gain clout with her friends, in my opinion, says everything you would ever need to know about her. My idiotic managers refuse to hire people to replace those that quit, leaving the rest of us completely understaffed and overwhelmed. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So about 2 years ago, I started at a store and I had two options, either work with meat or the cashier. Now I chose meat and it was okay, even though I really hated it. But then my supervisor got transferred and we were down a person, but nobody replaced him, aside from a new supervisor who we knew. Then another coworker kept missing days and got canned, but again, no replacement to be found. So now we're down to 2 people. And at this point, we're stuck with 6 people, 3 that show up from the morning till the early afternoon, and 3 in the afternoon all the way to the evening. So this was a 6-day work week, which I also didn't like, but I needed a job. So we all got 1 day off. So when someone from the afternoon shift, my shift, would take a day off, we get overworked when there's many customers. But anytime we hear about the subject of getting more help, our boss makes it clear that he won't hire anyone. That is, unless he cuts hours. We tell him what's going on, and he has cameras so he knows how many customers we get and how little work we get done versus when we have 3 people, but it all falls on deaf ears. And he also makes boneheaded decisions. Now, for a bit of context, Mondays are an absolute nightmare. Many customers come in, so we really need all hands on deck. So to top it all off, one of us has Monday off. So we're down to 2 people for the busiest day of the week. He will send for help, but only to cover lunch and nothing else. To make matters worse, he does hire people, but only for cashier positions while we need people. Being understaffed not only affects us being overworked, but customers can only be so patient and waiting if there's only one person for 4 or more customers, because then they just straight up leave. However, again, all of this is made very clear, but the boss does nothing but put blame on us if we have low sales. And yes, you heard that right. He, or the store supervisor, tells us that we have low sales and that it's our fault. Honestly, I want to leave, but I don't have another job lined up, and the good in me thinks of my coworkers when I do finally leave. They still deal with his inability to properly run a store. What should I do? Okay, first off, I don't think you should think about your coworkers at all in this scenario, because sure, they're in this mess as well, but they're in it voluntarily just like you are. I understand you need the job, but trust me, this is not worth it. So if I was in your shoes, I would be finding a new job immediately. Like, these managers and supervisors sound like they suck so much. And as someone who's worked a job where literally there's not enough people to get stuff done, like, it seriously is such a nightmare, it's not even funny. You're always stressed out, you can never get anything done that you need to get done, and you're always just running at 1,000%. And then for him to turn around and be like, wow, we have low sales, it's your fault. Like, oh my god, no wonder people are quitting. Like, if you're gonna understaff a department and then complain because that department is underperforming, then you, the manager, are the problem, not the employees who are doing everything they can to keep up. So truly, in my opinion, you definitely need to find something else, and you need to do this sooner than later for you as opposed to anybody else. Because trust me, that job does not sound like a good time, and if you know what's good for you, you will try to find something better sooner than later. My awful, useless manager refuses to do his job and literally leaves all of us in a bind constantly and consistently. And after dealing with this for so long, I finally watched this guy get fired in a way that honestly he completely deserved, and I truly hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. So I work at a local restaurant in my town as a waiter, and in May of this year, our previous general manager, we'll call her Cherry for the sake of the story, had resigned due to her pregnancy and other personal life events. So it was about 3 to 4 months before we finally hired a new general manager, who I will call Jackson. Jackson seemed like a nice guy and everything, a little quiet and standoffish at first, which was a contrast from our bubbly and more outgoing manager Cherry, but completely understandable nonetheless, because he was in a whole new environment. Well, little did we all know, no, those wouldn't be the only contrast from Cherry. When I tell you guys that Jackson was a complete letdown, I really can't stress that enough. Here's some examples of just how he let us all down. For starters, he would constantly show up late or not show up at all for his job without even calling the restaurant. Mind you, this is the same guy who is supposed to hold all of us employees below his authority to the same standard of communicating with your job. And he was also the same guy who scheduled all of our hours. And there were quite a few issues with this first problem. We were often led to wonder what in the world was going on with our general manager when he wouldn't arrive when scheduled. He would also often show up to work much later on in the day, or even the next day with a pitiful excuse if he even had one at all. One day he did not show up at all, and no one could get a hold of this guy by phone. He then showed up the next day and had the audacity to say something along the lines of, "Well, it doesn't matter why I was gone, it just matters that I'm here right now." And this to me is very reminiscent of the scene from the Brady Bunch movie, where the father always had some motivational quote that really wasn't saying anything at all. Jackson would also leave to go help his girlfriend, who supposedly worked at a shop around the corner from us, and sometimes not even let us know. Once, when this happened, only myself and one cook was there to run the entire restaurant. Luckily, we were not busy at all that day, but it's still the principle of what Jackson did to us. He then came back and nonchalantly said, "Oh yeah, I just had to help my girlfriend with a few things at her job, but I'm sure there were people at his girlfriend's job who could have helped her, but whatever, I guess." Jackson left before his shift was over with, without notifying any of us before another waitress, who we will call Sarah, even came into work. Sarah happened to be late that day and thankfully called us to let us know. I told her that I would let Jackson know, but I could not find him due to the lack of communication. Sometimes if you're late, you have to use a manager's card to clock in late. So when Sarah arrived, she was about to do this, but because Jackson was gone and none of us could find him, we all finally realized that he wasn't there. She had to call another shift manager by the name of Brenda and wait for her to come and clock her in. She had to wait maybe 2 to 3 hours to clock into her own job. And this guy would never apologize or anything like that for all of this. He would just come back to work whenever he pleased and just act like nothing was out of the ordinary. Another example is the fact that he did not work around other people's schedules when needed. Our last manager, Cherry, was good about working around other people's schedules, especially whenever we needed it. As long as we gave her notice and time, she was okay with it. But Jackson, on the other hand, absolutely did not. We had a big amount of new cooks and hosts that applied and got the job at our restaurant shortly after Jackson stopped in, and while they seemed good and promising, he didn't work around their schedules like he should have. So, if I remember correctly, all but 1 or 2 of our new staff almost quit immediately after joining. He would also order things that the restaurant did not need, while completely neglecting things that we did need. One time, our dishwasher was breaking down during rush hour, which slowed us down considerably. When another one of our shift managers by the name of Kaylin called in and asked for help, he somehow got out of our call where we needed help, stating that he needed more pancake batter when no one ever mentioned anything about that. He also proceeded to hang up on her and did not arrive to help us at all that day. Jackson also does not follow the dress code. For reference, us employees have a dress code to wear all black, but managers can wear whatever they want as long as they look professional. Well, one day, Jackson came in with some sweats and a hoodie on, and when another waitress by the name of Tara called him out for the double standard, he left to go home and never came back for the rest of the day. Also, his last day working there was a complete nightmare. Everything you could think of was going wrong on this morning. We had faulty equipment, as the dishwasher and some of the machines were just malfunctioning, and because of all of this, it was unfortunately taking a lot of tables around an hour to receive their food. Not to mention that this was also during the rush hour. Eventually, we had to put a hold on the doors and even pause seating for new guests because there was no way any of us could catch up to where we needed to be while still be expected to take on new customers. And to top it all off, Jackson of all people was in charge to manage this crap. Now, Jackson did his usual thing of not doing his job like he should, and he even had the nerve to try and boss other people around without doing much to help any of us. But eventually, he disappeared without notifying anyone. Another waitress, who we will call Abby, as well as myself, needed help with something that only Jackson could have helped us with since he is a manager. So we looked around the restaurant and we simply could not find him. We then went outside into the parking lot to find him, but his car was nowhere to be found. During all of this, we had very upset customers who wanted to speak to the manager, but I had to be honest and tell them that we had no manager here with us because he was out there doing whatever it is that he does. And sure, that was probably unprofessional to say, but he was being very unprofessional, and it was true. We then had to let the other staff know what happened, and Tara had to call Kaylin to notify her. By this point, Jackson had been written up many times for his previous incident incidents that I had talked about, but he had one last chance and he just now blew it. So Kaylin ended up calling him to fire him, but he decided to quit on the spot so that he couldn't be fired. So Kaylin had to step in to help for the rest of the day, meaning that there was no more Jackson. Jackson was fired over 2 months ago, and since then, Brenda has had to step up as the general manager, which honestly was the best choice, considering that she had worked at our restaurant for almost 20 years and had more experience at other restaurants in the past before that. And now that you know he was fired, here's 2 other things that I need to mention. For starters, he did not keep up with the bills and utilities of the restaurant. We all found this out after he quit, so it was between Kaylin and Brenda to step in and catch up on all of this. We also found out that after he quit, that he was fired from several other jobs as general manager before being hired by us. And I do not know how he managed to get hired at our restaurant, but he did. And this explains why he quit before we would fire him, so that he couldn't say that he was fired again. I also want to emphasize again that Cherry was a really good general manager. I think that she actually cared about her job and the employees, which is a rarity these days. So it was sad to see her leave. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Jackson at all. So that was the story of our entitled and useless previous general manager, Jackson. Nobody has ever seen him again, and I can only pray for whichever place hires him next. Wow, that guy's a piece of garbage. He literally left all of you out to dry so many times it's not even funny. For me, the worst part about it is the fact that he would not step up and do his job. Like, if this guy really is the general manager and he has responsibilities associated with his employees, then he needs to be there and do his job. It is tremendously unfair for everybody else at this job that has to deal with him not being there. Like, seriously, that is so annoying. Not to mention the fact that he would just leave work whenever he wanted to help out his girlfriend. It's like, I'm sorry, sir, do you have a second job somewhere else? Like, what is going on right now? There's no excuse for this. So honestly, for the sake of you and the people you work with, I'm really glad that you guys don't have to deal with Jackson anymore, because this guy sounded like a nightmare to deal with. My entitled coworker treats me specifically like garbage while still choosing to be friends with all of our other coworkers. And at this point, I'm seriously confused on what I should do about this, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a server at a steakhouse, and one day I took a double shift where I was host for the rest of the half. We had a dinner rush, and since there were 2 other hosts taking care of guests, I decided to help out with the servers and bartenders during the rush. One of the hosts was in training, and the other was very experienced, and given the circumstances, I asked the experienced host if she would be okay taking care of the rush with the trainee. She said, yeah, that's fine, this is nothing. And so I went off to do my thing. I go to the kitchen and I start helping servers with running food and getting bread and anything else they might need. I then start helping the bartender, who was very clearly behind on a lot. For reference, I'll call him Tony. Out of nowhere, Tony starts berating me with a rude tone. What are you doing? We don't need you back here, bro. There's a hostess by herself up there. Now, mind you, there's 2 hosts, and the experienced one said she didn't need my help. Stunned in that moment, I go silent, and I just go up there to check on the host desk. And guess what? They're completely fine. Later on, I confronted Tony, and I told him politely, hey Tony, I appreciate you looking out for other workers, but what you're not going to do is talk to me that way. I've been helping you out all night through the rush, and I just found it disrespectful that you treat me this way. His response was to say, okay bro, alright. And this is all midway while I'm talking to him, just trying to brush me off. He then said to me, you're just trying to start stuff with me. I then tell him politely, no, I'm just telling you how you made me feel. He then just excuses me away like I was annoying him. Now, I barely stand up for myself, but I really felt tired of being a pushover. Typically, when someone calls me out, I accept it and read advice that standing up for yourself gets you the respect you deserve most of the time. But I couldn't be the more opposite. Since that encounter, Tony never says hello to me, despite me greeting him every time I walk in. I run his food when he's choked at the bar, and he never says thank you to me. He laughs and converses with anyone else, but despite me never being rude or nasty to him in my entire time working there, he never does that with me. So hopefully you get the picture. I genuinely don't know how to deal with this, and it's compounded by the fact that he's always on the same shift as me. I have OCD and ADHD, so it's hard to stop running this over in my head. So I need to ask, has anyone else had a similar situation like this? How do you mentally go about this? Do I stay the better man and treat him with respect? Or do I just ignore him and stop helping someone who doesn't show gratitude or even acknowledge my existence? What should I do? Honestly, if I was in your shoes, because trust me, I've been there before, I would stop trying to talk to him altogether. I know you probably feel like maybe if you prove yourself, you'll gain his respect, but I'm here to tell you that Tony doesn't care about you. He doesn't like you now, and he's not gonna like you tomorrow. And fortunately for you, there's nothing you can do about that. And I say fortunately because at least you know where Tony stands. You know that he's a piece of garbage garbage, and you do not need to waste your energy on trying to appeal to him. Truly, this is a situation where no matter how hard you try, someone is always going to hate you for literally no reason. You could be the shiniest apple in the bunch, but guess what? Some people just don't like apples. And that's not a you problem, that most definitely is a Tony problem. So something that I've done when I've dealt with coworkers who act like this is that I just completely cut off any unnecessary communication with them. When they betray my innate trust I might have in them in this way, then I immediately just shut them out and I say, okay, we're just coworkers. I'm not going to be your friend, and trust me, we are never talking outside of what's necessary. Because Tony's behavior is completely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to deal with that in the slightest. My mom has secretly been dating my ex-boyfriend, who cheated on me and practically ruined my life. So now, after I uninvited her to my wedding, she says that I'm being selfish and that I need to let go of the past and move on with my life, even going as far as trying to turn my fiance against me by telling him all the secrets about my previous relationship. And now my family is literally split down the middle, as the people who are siding with my mom claim that I'm betraying the family and that I need to let go of the past. But at this point, I feel like I'm about to have a full-blown anxiety attack because I seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been engaged to my fiance for a while now, and I was genuinely excited to have my mom involved in planning our wedding. Our family has always prided itself on being close-knit, but recently that sense of unity has been completely shattered. Over the past few months, I noticed my mom's behavior changing dramatically. She began canceling plans at the last minute, often citing vague reasons or saying that she was too busy. I tried not to jump to conclusions, but something just felt off. The last time we met though, she seemed distant and preoccupied, constantly checking her phone. Now, I just brushed it off, thinking she might be dealing with work stress or some kind of personal issues. But after weeks of this unsettling behavior, I decided I couldn't keep ignoring my gut feeling. So I confronted her one evening when we were having dinner. I asked if everything was okay and if there was something that she wanted to talk about. She hesitated, looking uncomfortable, before finally admitting that she had been seeing someone else. I then decided to press for details, and to my shock, she insisted that it was someone I wouldn't know. At that point, my curiosity and worry spiraled into full-blown anxiety. I respected her privacy, but my instinct was screaming that something was wrong. I mean, what if she was hiding something bigger? A few days later, she showed up at my house unannounced. Her demeanor was tense, and I could tell that she was anxious about something. I thought maybe she was finally going to introduce her new boyfriend, which I was hopeful about despite my earlier suspicions. Instead, she dropped a bombshell. She had been dating my ex for the past few months, and when she said this, I was utterly floored. My ex and I had a tumultuous relationship that ended really badly. He had cheated on me multiple times, leaving me heartbroken and struggling to trust ever again. My mom knew the pain that he had caused me and how hard I fought to move on from that toxic relationship. When I confronted her about why she would choose to date someone who had caused me so much pain, she claimed that it was a different time and insisted that he had changed. And at that point, I couldn't believe my ears. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete violation of trust. She had kept this secret from me, knowing how much I had struggled with my feelings towards him. I felt completely blindsided and emotionally shattered. In a moment of anger and hurt, I told her that she was no longer welcome at my wedding. I explained that having her there would only serve as a painful reminder of the hurt that he caused, and that I didn't want her standing by my side while she was with him. Well, her reaction completely shocked me. She broke down in tears, accusing me of being unreasonable and selfish. She said she deserved to be happy too, and that I was trying to control her life. Now, the fallout from this has been really intense. My family is now divided. Some relatives agree with me, stating that I have every right to protect my special day from that kind of emotional turmoil, but others, however, think that I'm overreacting and that I should simply accept her choice and move on. The whole situation has created this unbearable tension during what should be one of the happiest times of my life. Things took a darker turn when I discovered my mom had been talking to my fiance behind my back. One night, I overheard a conversation between them, and I was shocked to hear her sharing intimate details about my past with my ex, things that I had never told anybody. She was recounting my heartbreak and the struggles I faced after our breakup. I felt my heart race as I listened, horrified by what I heard. Was she trying to turn him against me? Was she attempting to justify her relationship with my ex by painting me as unstable and overly emotional? Now, with the wedding day approaching, I'm filled with anxiety and dread. My mom has started posting about the betrayal on social media, portraying me as the villain. She is reaching out to family members for sympathy, saying I'm being cruel and unloving, and some relatives are siding with her, which only adds to the pressure. I feel isolated and betrayed by the very person I thought I could trust the most. To make matters worse, I received a text from my mom asking to meet up. She said she had something important to discuss, which honestly just sent my heart racing. What could she possibly want to say that could change everything? Was she planning to apologize? Or was this just another ploy to manipulate me further? The uncertainty is driving me crazy. I've tried to talk to my fiance about it, but he is caught in the middle and feels uncomfortable discussing it any further. He loves me and wants to support me, but I can tell he's also trying to navigate this tricky situation with my mom. So to the internet, I need to know, am I overreacting by uninviting my mom to my wedding after she started dating my ex? I genuinely feel torn and hurt, and I now seriously don't know what to do. This is mind-blowing. Like seriously, this is actually insane. Your mom is dating your ex-boyfriend who cheated on you. Let's just unpack that for a second. Your mom, who probably sat by your side and watched as you cry and your whole life fall apart, is now actively dating the person who ruined that life? Like, are you kidding me right now? Your mom's a piece of garbage. Like, that needs to be said out loud because this is like unbelievable. Who in their right mind would be like, oh man, this person ruined my daughter's life. Oh well, I guess I have to date them now. Good thing that's in the past. It's like, no, what are you doing? You don't do that to your child. Like, that's insane behavior. And the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, you're so selfish. I can't believe how unkind you're being. Like, dude, you are not the victim here. If anything, you're the assailant. Like, you've got to be kidding. But for me, the biggest red flag here is the fact that she talked to your fiance without your knowledge. Like, the second she did that, in my opinion, that would have been like the nail in the coffin. That is so wildly inappropriate, it's not even funny. So no, you're not overreacting by uninviting her to your wedding, because this quite literally is going to cause so much unnecessary drama on your big day, because that man ruined your life, forcing you to rebuild from the ground up. And if I was in your shoes, that is absolutely something I would never want to relive again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My former coworker tried to start an affair with me and is constantly trying to find me at work and reconnect, despite the fact that I've blocked her on everything. And now, after a year later and me thinking that all of this was behind me, she has popped back up into my life in a way that honestly is really freaking me out. Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I thought I had put this to rest, but I'm worried that this is starting to chase after me. Back in June of 2020, I made friends with a coworker when I got moved to start a program at a new location. She worked in sales and I did all the fulfillment. It went from basic coworker banter and complaining to her sharing about her personal life. I went through a messy breakup at the time and used this as a distraction from going home to an empty house and dealing with my own thoughts. She then started talking to me about her husband. He wasn't involved with the kids, he had some medical concerns because of how he lives his life, and she brought up how she doesn't get along with her stepdaughter, and her family despises her husband, and his family doesn't like her. When I suggested that she talk to her husband about this, she said he doesn't listen, and he doesn't understand her like I do. She also started telling me about her 3 biological kids as if I knew them, or was more involved with them in some kind of way. But then, if her husband was around, I didn't exist. This then quickly escalated as she started asking compatibility questions, and if we thought differently. Then she pursued a physical affair by inviting me over for a fake emergency, only to then clarify that her husband and kids were not home. Now, this never wound up happening, but she became possessive of me. If a female friend or coworker would take my attention away from her, she would get jealous, and it was obvious to everybody. Clients picked up on what was happening, and other managers saw how she would act around me. She would make up excuses to call me after work about work, or just text me all the time. She would get extremely upset if I didn't text her back, and I had multiple coworkers telling me how she acted, including one who mentioned that she talked about me more in a few months than she has ever talked about her husband in 12 years. When no one was around, she would tease me, try to get alone with me, and chase me in the showroom to stop me from leaving. She always got in my way and would act like a little girl, teasing and blocking me until I would acknowledge her. Well, after all of this, I put in for a transfer and I got it. When I would visit her location, she would text me asking why I wouldn't come in and say hi. She got released as part of downsizing not long after, and she would constantly find reasons to text me, even if it was just a bunch of nonsense, and one time made an emergency out of a dead battery just to try and get me to come and help her out. Well, fast forward and I met a girl, and I realized that things with my former coworker were so bad, so I just blocked her. I blocked her on socials and all of her numbers. I cut all of that off because I wanted things to work with the girl I met. It's now been a year, and the coworker has come into my work and asked about me and when I'm in. I also noticed that she was checking out my new art page on Instagram. She was watching my stories and all this other stuff. I didn't think I would need to block her, but it's been a year, and she is still trying to stay part of my life and constantly asks about me at work. And it also would not be hard for her to find out where I live. So truly, why is she so obsessed with me? What should I do? Okay, I don't know why you haven't reported her to somebody at this point, because seriously, this is super creepy. Like, you need to go to human resources or even possibly the police, because this lady is actively following your every move. Like, obviously, I would block her on everything, but also if I was in your shoes, I would tell her straight up, listen, I don't like you. Your actions are weird and creepy, and I don't want you in my life. Leave me alone. And then keep that as a document just in case she still decides to come after you. Because what she's doing right now is insane behavior, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not telling my dad's wife more about my medical condition after she disrespected my dead mother? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old male, and I have a form of epilepsy that has needed to be accommodated for my entire life. I don't have seizures every day, but I am on medications, and I do still get seizures, so I need to be careful about what I look at or what I do for too long. My mom passed away when I was 10 years old, and last year my dad remarried. I was still living with him at the time, but a couple weeks after the wedding, his wife went into my study space and she broke a photo of my mom and a glass figurine that my mom used to own, all while she was cleaning my room. She apologized for the photo but brushed off the figurine, even though she knew what it was, and she did it because she thought it was ugly. I asked her why in the world did she go in there in the first place, but I guess she had to go through my room to get to the study space, and she told me she was cleaning and wanted to do something nice. She told me accidents happen, and so I asked her how she happened to just break the photo frame holding my mom's photo and a figurine that my mom used to own. Well, she told me I'm reading too much into it, and that I should be grateful that she was willing to even look at anything that belonged to my mom. The fight that we had got so bad that I decided to move out of my dad's house because I did not trust her with anything of my mom's. I also did not want her to act like she could just go into my room whenever she wanted. Dad wanted me to calm down and to let him find a replica of the figurine to make up for it. He also wanted me to stay, but I told him I would not after her attitude about the figurine and what she said about being grateful that she'd look at that stuff in the first place. He worried a lot about me, but I moved in with my grandparents, so I was safe. And I had other people there just in case, even though I don't actually need that. He just worries about me in that way. After that incident, I simply don't like my dad's wife, and I keep my distance from her. But he has confided in her about my condition and the stress, and she was upset that I never talked to her about it, and she has tried to reach out so that I will fill her in more about it and the impact on me so she knows better. But I have refused. I do not want to discuss my medical information with her or my health. She said we're family and she needs to know what to look out for, and she said I'll need to be around her again sometime or I could lose my dad, so then we would have to come together and I should just let her take care of me too. Well, I didn't reply to several of her attempts, and the last time, 4 days ago, I did reply and I told her she is not my parent and she is not my actual family. In fact, she's not a person I live with and she's not my doctor and it's none of her business. She told me I'm making life difficult and to think more of my dad, who deserves to see us get along and be a family. She also said she deserves to know important stuff like this. So am I the jerk for not wanting to give her this information? What should I do? No, you're not a jerk. This is so weird and intrusive. For starters, I kind of agree with the original poster where they assume that, yeah, this lady went in there and broke those objects on purpose, all in spite of your mother. I'm willing to bet the photo and the figurine were in a safe spot, so you weren't just leaving it lying around for anyone to run into. So she probably had to go out of her way to find it and break it on purpose, which seriously, based on the way she's acting, I would not put it behind her that she might have tried to do that. So with that in mind, this lady does not deserve to know anything about you because her behavior, in my opinion, was completely inappropriate, and that is not something that I would ever put up with for a second. My idiotic managers refuse to allow me to help out with other departments, despite the fact that I know way more about all of this than they do. So when the moment was right, I decided to maliciously comply, causing a massive backup in our store in a way that they have never recovered from ever since. Here's what happened. So about 10 years ago, I applied to work at a retail store selling different types of tech. It is a rather large chain in the United Kingdom and can get pretty busy, especially after 5 o'clock or even during the holidays or some kind of sale. When I applied for the job, I wanted to go to the computing department as I was very passionate about different builds and had some experience in building my own PC. Instead, I was temporarily placed on white goods for training, even after I've admitted that I know absolutely nothing about them. But no, apparently this knowledge should have been inherited through my genes since I'm a girl, so I must know about them and be very good. So I bit my tongue and I waited, as I needed money and I was fresh out of university. Well, about a few months in, I realized I'm not going to be transferred to the computing department, no matter how much I wanted to. My sales were good, but the manager wouldn't budge, as they were scared scared I might give the wrong kind of advice or something like that. Now, it was the start of a school term, and the store was getting pretty busy. A couple came in wanting to buy a PC for their teenage kid to game on, and I wanted to help them as a fellow gamer myself, but instead I got rudely pulled back by my manager and was told that unless I was assigned to a specific department, we are not allowed to help customers or advise them. So he fetched another colleague who carried on assisting the parents. Now, as it was quiet in my department, I was doing some tidying up around the store, and I heard the colleagues trying to sell the parents one of the Apple PCs, saying that they will be great for gaming and all professionals use them. Now, let me tell you, they are not the best machines for gaming, and if you are going into heavier games, they are likely not going to run that well or just be incompatible with the operating system. I don't know what else the colleague said, but the parents believed him and they got an iMac for the kid. The manager was very proud of the colleague and told me to use him as an example of a good sale for the store, but I told him I could have topped it and the customer will come back with a return, but once again, I was told not to go to the computing department. So after listening to their garbage, I decided to maliciously comply. A few days later, it was a busy day in the store, especially with PCs due to the back-to-school sale. A few people were off sick due to being overworked, so the computing department had like 2 people on the floor, including the work colleague who sold the iMac. Well, the parents came through the door with the PC they got, which usually means something broke down or they want to return it. They saw the guy who sold the PC to them and started heading his way. He saw them too and decided it's a good time to go on lunch, leaving one colleague on the floor in the department. The parents are visibly getting angry and try to go to the cash register, but after being in the queue, they're told to catch another colleague in the tech department as we can't process refunds at the till for large items. The parents then approach me as I don't have much to do and they ask me for help. Now, I would be happy to do so, but remembering what the manager said, I had to tell them that I can't as I'm not allowed to do anything with the PC department as it is a store policy. The parents approach more colleagues and keep hearing the same excuse, and obviously they are getting more and more angry, which is the same thing that's happening to other customers who literally just want to buy something, but they literally can't since only people in the computing department are allowed to sell stuff for computers. They try to grab the only person on the floor, but he is already busy with other customers and can't assist them, while the other colleague responsible for the sale signed out for the day and the other is late. In about 20 minutes, there's a massive queue by the tills of angry customers demanding to speak to a manager. The poor person at the till has no choice but to fetch the store manager as well as the floor managers, all due to the amount of angry customers they were dealing with. Well, at this point, they try shifting the blame on us, the other store colleagues, but I mentioned about what the other manager said about not touching anything in the tech department or even helping customers as we are not authorized, and since it is a company policy and we haven't received the training, so we have to comply. Now, of course, it makes customers even more angry and they feel like their time is being wasted, resulting in a commotion by the tills and further delays for other customers. Now, I'm not sure how the entire situation ended as I was grabbed by an older lady to help her, but that day we had a lot of complaints on different websites about the policy, as well as store staff refusing to help out as it is not their department. We then had a few brainstorming sessions afterwards about how we could reduce complaints with none of the ideas taken on board. You would hope they would learn something and change the policy, but no! They gave extra training to the people already in the computing department and allowed other colleagues to sell smaller items like mice or keyboards, as well as gaming consoles, games, printers, but just not the laptops or the PCs or the virtual reality, which also resulted in more complaints. The last time I was there to buy my mom's new laptop, as I had a voucher, the situation seemed to have stayed the same, as we ended up waiting about 45 minutes for someone to push the sale through. But at least I got the chance to complain to the store manager, as well as telling him everything that I think about their stupid store policy. Wow, you would think after a debacle like this, they would change their policy and be like, okay, we've got to switch this up. And why would they not let you go into that department and help out, or even bring you on board? You had innate knowledge about this type of thing, like you knew exactly what you were doing, and you could have saved a lot of people a lot of money by helping them get the right PC or like the right laptop. Like your managers were just complete morons. But despite all of this, I love the way you maliciously complied and basically shoved this right back in their face, because truly, these people absolutely suck, and they deserve to get thrown under the bus in the way that they did. Am I the jerk for not doing my coworkers' dirty dishes and cleaning up after them inside the office kitchen? Because right now, I've basically been labeled as not a team player, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this debate has been going on for years. I've worked at the same small office for many years at this point. Before this company, I had always worked in larger offices, and at no times have I ever felt obligated to clean up after other people in the office. My current office is split down the middle, 3 women and 3 men. As it happens, one of my coworkers, let's call her Kay, is close to the owners of the company who also work in the office, and she has always been the one to clean up the kitchen mess. Maybe it's because she feels closest to them, or because it makes her feel good about herself, I'm not really sure. She used to often complain about feeling obligated to clean up the kitchen mess, but lately I see that things with her have changed. Her feelings have now morphed into her saying, well, if it's dirty, just clean it, there's no complaints. And because I'm not going to clean up after adults in the office, she has decided that I'm not a team player. Since this has been going on for so long, I see how I have become extra careful to not leave a mess of my own in the kitchen. I clean up what I dirty immediately, and if I bring something from home to eat, I pack it up and I clean it at home. I also eat out quite a bit. One other thing to mention is that I have not heard her talk to anyone else in the office about cleaning up after others. She only seems to have a problem with me. Is this because I vocalized that I won't participate in cleaning up after adults? I mean, honestly, I think the only reason this bothers me so much is because I've always considered myself to be a team player, and I know that she now considers me not to be one. And you would seriously have to see the look of disgust on her face during these conversations. So am I the jerk for not giving in and cleaning up after these adults in the office? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, that's so dumb. This lady's being so stupid by being like, well, you're not a team player by cleaning up after my mess. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? We are all adults here. There's no reason why you can't clean up after yourself. And the fact that she's trying to like guilt trip you into doing it, that in my opinion is super weird and so uncalled for. So no, you're not the jerk because this really is incredibly petty. A crazy entitled couple tries to run our delivery van off the road, stating that if we didn't cater their upcoming party for free, they were going to sue us into oblivion and shut down our business. But after reviewing the camera footage that we had on the truck, I proved to them once and for all that they're not only lying, but also that they're gonna have some problems after I file a detailed police report. Here's what happened. So this happened sometime last year, but due to it being an open incident, I held off on sharing until now. In late winter, early spring of last year, I got a call in from the delivery driver that someone had brake checked them on the main road into town and then they sped off. Luckily, it was after delivery was completed, so nothing delicate was on board. I take down the plate, the vehicle information, as well as all the standard stuff for an incident of road rage. But before I can finish up the call, the brake checkers actually called into our main office. Now, before I can complete the standard spiel, they immediately cut me off and start screaming. Right as I'm greeting them and saying the name of our catering business, the entitled man on the other line said, "Your jerk driver tried to run us off the road." Now, it's important to know that I know our driver. They are the least aggressive, most careful driver I have ever seen. They regularly deliver precarious items like wedding cakes without so much as disrupting them. If anything, they're too cautious, definitely not running people off the road. I say to him, "Excuse me, sir, but I don't think our delivery van would have tried to run you off the road intentionally. Were you perhaps traveling in the vehicle's blind spot? There are warning signs on the delivery van to avoid lingering in blind spots when the driver signals." And this was about as far as I could get with trying to be diplomatic because these people freaked out on me. The entitled woman of this couple then said to me, "Why are you defending this jerk? This is some minimum wage idiot that probably doesn't even belong in this country." The man then chimed in and said, "Your driver tried to take us out, and you're making excuses? This is outrageous." I then said to them, "Sir, ma'am, please calm down. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of things." The entitled man continued, "Do you know who I am? I'll shut your whole company down. You listen to me, you little jerk. You better be ready to give us some hefty compensation, or we'll take this to the police and we will sue you." It was then that the woman came in with something that really sounded super sketchy. She said to me, "We have a party coming up, and if you'd agree to cater to it for free, we might let all of this go." Now, I have no doubt the look on my face when I heard that out of the woman's mouth must have been one of the most exacerbated faces I've ever made. And at this point, I'm just pausing to try and process this bizarre demand. The man then said to me, "Hey, stupid, did you hear what my wife was saying? Do you speak proper English?" Now, it's at this point I've had enough, as I had put the pieces together as soon as they'd complained about road rage. I then recited their license plate number and said, "Is that your car with a gold 4-door crossover?" The man on the other line then said to me, "Are you the jerk driving that big stupid van?" But I responded by saying no, but the driver called in that you brake checked them right before you called in. This man then said to me, "We just tried to stop the driver because he was a danger to everybody on the road." But I just said to him, "Okay, sure. Well, we will see what the facts are once the vehicle's camera footage is reviewed." Our delivery vehicle is equipped with 360-degree recording. Let me pull that up real quick. This guy then started freaking out. He said to me, "That's a lie. There's no such thing." But unlucky for him, there is. So I pull the footage up from the fleet management software software, which proceeds to show the gold car in question not just traveling in the blind spot, but are actually fully behind the vehicle. They then speed up to try and cut it off when the driver turned on the signal to change lanes. I say to him, "Sir, I can clearly see your wife in the driver's seat, and she's clearly speeding up after the driver signaled that they wanted to change lanes, and that's when she entered the vehicle's blind spot. Then, instead of slowing down when the vehicle started to change lanes, you kept trying to push up until they were forced onto the shoulder." The entitled woman tried to say, "Oh no, that's not what happened." But I said, "Don't interrupt me. I can clearly see you zip into the left lane, overtake the van, merge in front without signaling at an unsafe distance, and then slam on your brakes. So you know what? After reviewing this footage, I think it's a great idea to get the police involved." At this point, the entitled woman is sputtering and trying to come up with something to say. And that's when the man says, "Just hang up the phone." They then disconnected the call, and I had a huge laugh about it and then made an online police report. But hopefully in the future, their insurance premiums will never be the same ever again. Wow, I can't believe that someone actually tried to brake check one of your employees and then try to give you some kind of ultimatum that you either cater their stupid party or else they're going to sue you. That is crazy and absolutely ridiculous. The fact that anyone would think they would get away with that is also just mind-numbing. So good for you for having a level head throughout all of this, and good for you guys for having cameras, because if it wasn't for that, I'm sure these people probably would have gotten away with it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not apologizing to my future mother-in-law after she called me out about fake drama during a meeting about my wedding? Here's what happened. Okay, so this all broke loose in late October when my fiance called during a weekend meeting saying that his parents and my parents are going to sit down and discuss the wedding. But I said, "Look, I'm so drained. Can it wait? It is set for October of 2026. Any other weekend would be great." But no, apparently it must be today. At the meeting, my future mother-in-law opened with an unexpected statement. She said to me, "Look, I love you, but I heard accusations at work that you claimed I'm not involved in the wedding. Do you remember saying anything like this?" Now, for a bit of context, she previously worked as the assistant director at my daycare, maintaining a close relationship with a coworker. Now, when I heard this, I was surprised and very confused. I clarified that I had not said such a thing. I don't typically engage in personal discussions at work. I did mention that a coworker who recently got married asked me about my wedding plans, and I had shared that my father is covering the cost due to tradition. My future mother-in-law then proposed that her brother be the wedding DJ, but that's when my father responded, noting that he prefers hiring a professional service for reliability, stating that he needed someone to chew out if something went wrong. Well, the meeting ended abruptly after this, and I left feeling upset and completely blindsided. My parents supported me, emphasizing that involving them in an issue between my future mother-in-law and me was inappropriate. It felt infantilizing. The following Monday, she suggested we stop visiting her home. I conveyed my disappointment in a written message, expressing my discomfort and need for space, especially during upcoming holidays. I also requested that future issues be addressed privately. Well, her reaction was intense. She labeled me immature and demanded an apology. And when my fiance defended me, this exacerbated the tensions. His brother acknowledged the challenging work environment that might fuel gossip, but maintained a balanced approach. Fast forward, and when we visited to drop my fiance's brother off at home on November 3rd, she approached me in the car, said she forgives me, and expressed her hope to move forward. But I just responded by saying, "Okay," and then my fiance said that he would speak to her later. He then said that she cried, went to her room and broke stuff, and that his brother took her on a walk to calm down. Now, at this point, I have maintained that I won't apologize for something I didn't do. Apologies should be genuine, not concessions to ease discomfort. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Oh man, I understand completely where the original poster is coming from, because I am right there with you. If I didn't do anything, I'm not apologizing. Sorry, I don't care how awkward things are, that's not happening. And in this situation, you literally did nothing wrong. For starters, why is your mother-in-law having a meeting about your wedding? And then when we have the meeting, it's about gossip that could have been talked about in private. It's like, lady, what are you talking about right now? You're literally bringing up drama that's probably not even true, just in some weird, desperate attempt to get information about the original poster and how they feel about you. That's all this says to me. There's probably not anybody gossiping about her at work. So for her to call you out in front of everybody and then demand an apology of some kind, that's some crazy narcissistic behavior she's got going on. And if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would put up with that for a second. This wedding is literally 2 years away, and she's already causing problems with your wedding. So in my opinion, I would never apologize to this woman. If she wants to burst into tears and throw a fit and break stuff around her house house, then go for it. But you did quite literally nothing wrong, and that is something that you should absolutely hold on to. Am I the jerk for telling my friends that I don't want to rent with them the night before they're supposed to sign a lease? Because right now I'm so scared of what's going to happen, and I seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 19-year-old first-year college student who about a week ago agreed with a group of 5 friends that I would be interested in living with them next school year. Yesterday, we found a place that we really liked and talked about how we would find out about the lease by the end of the week. But today, they've decided they want to sign the lease as soon as possible, or even by tonight, because the landlord explained that the market is competitive and they don't want to lose this nice house. But reading through the lease has made me realize I don't want to do this financially. Even with the 5 of us, this would cost me about $750 a month, or $9,000 to live there from August 2025 to July of 2026, not counting any of the utilities, and that is money that could be going towards classes. For reference, I am paying for school by myself, and I just came back from a gap year of working. I do not want to take any loans, and I have a lot of anxieties about going into debt after college, because that's what happened to my mom, and it still affects her to this day. My family also lives close enough to campus that I can just stay with them without having to pay anything. These friends are all from out of town, so they need to find a place to stay. I feel like a jerk now for saying that I don't think I can as soon as they're trying to sign a place, because I definitely could with the money that I've saved, but I know I'll regret it in the future. I know I really don't want to, but I feel like I have to because they don't have anyone else, and they need 5 people to make this work. Right now, I'm banking on the fact that my parents refused to co-sign, but I technically wouldn't need them because my credit score is better than the both of them. Do I continue to lie and say that my parents are the reason I can't sign? Most, if not all of these places require us to have 2 co-signers because we are so young, but my parents' financial history are so poor, they don't think that they'd be approved as co-signers. I feel like a jerk because this is causing them a lot of anxiety, but it would be better for my own anxiety in the long run if I stayed at home and saved the money. I don't know how any of them are paying for school, so I feel awkward and kind of like a jerk for suddenly saying I couldn't afford it. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, based on the information we have, I have to say that yeah, I do think the original poster is kind of a jerk here. There's no way in the world you didn't know you had to pay some kind of rent. Like seriously, that should be obvious if you're going to be renting someplace. Now that's not to say that this really is kind of sketchy, because the landlord is like, guys, you gotta sign it like right away. The market's really competitive. Please sign it right now. Like anytime someone's trying to like do that to you, in my opinion, that's like super sketchy and I almost immediately back out. But I think the principle of the matter still stands. If you know for a fact you can't live with these people and it would be cheaper for you to stay at home and commute to school, then why on earth would you agree to like live with your friends? You really should not make promises like that, especially if you don't know the whole situation. So yeah, I do kind of think you're the jerk here, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of blowback, and hopefully there's not at all, because this really does come down to you saying to your friends, hey, my situation has changed. And if they really are your friend, then they'll be okay with it and find somebody else. Am I the jerk for turning off my roommate's laundry at 5 o'clock in the morning after the noise quite literally kept me and my girlfriend from going to sleep? Because right now, my roommate is incredibly frustrated with me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and I woke up to my girlfriend waking me up due to the laundry running super early on in the morning. For context, I share a house with 3 other college guys, and we all have pretty late sleep schedules except for one roommate. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this roommate Edward. Our washer and dryer are right outside my bedroom door, so any noise that it makes is super loud. Now, I want to just try to push through it and go back to sleep, but my girlfriend can't sleep, and I want to prioritize her more than anything. So I decide to turn off the dryer so we can get some sleep. Now, she is mad at this point because it's not just the first or second time that this has happened, but maybe the 5th or 6th time just this semester alone. And she asked me to say something in the group chat, but I say that it's not worth it and everyone is probably asleep anyways, so we can just bring it up in the morning. I just want to sleep for now. But she brings up a good point that it's just disrespectful for someone to run something that loud right next to our room so early in the morning or even late at night. I contemplate sending the message, but then seconds later, Edward is blowing up our group chat, accusing me of turning his laundry off all the time and saying that's why his clothing is never dry. I told him it was literally the first time I've ever done this, but he didn't believe me and kept pushing that I'm suspicious and basically making it out like I'm messing with his laundry on purpose. I tried to explain that I was just trying to sleep, but he did not seem to care and was only focused on his wet clothing. He also doesn't have any work or career fairs or anything like that. In hindsight, maybe I should have told him right away that I'd turned it off, but I was groggy and I didn't think that it would be such a big deal. When I eventually decided decided to send the message, he had already blown up our group chat. Edward insisted that he didn't have other times to do his laundry and accused me of being disrespectful for messing with his stuff. But I suggested maybe we could set quiet hours for the laundry, and he said that it wasn't that serious. So am I the jerk for turning off his laundry, all because it was literally preventing me from going to sleep? What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, I kind of think everybody sucks here. For starters, you really should not have turned off his laundry. I understand it's late at night, but this honestly was not the right move, and I think talking to him in some kind of way would have been way better than what you did. But also, this roommate is a complete jerk. He's literally trying to paint you as the bad guy first, before you can be like, hey, stop doing laundry in the middle of the night. And for him to be like, oh, it's not that serious. It's like, okay, it was serious enough for you to send a message to everybody and call me out and make me seem like the bad guy. Like seriously, quiet hours are a good thing. And I really think that would be a good solution to this problem. So yeah, I think everybody can probably work on some stuff in this scenario, because the way this went down, in my opinion, was a bit immature. Am I the jerk for refusing to make calls to social services on my girlfriend's behalf after she forgot to call them after we went on a month-long vacation? Because right now, after I refused, she called me a jerk and got really upset. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner has phone anxiety and executive dysfunction. A lot of the time, I need to be on top of things like bills, coordinating repairs, etc., and I have more or less accepted that. Without revealing where we live, she's been unemployed for nearly 2 years and has been on social service payments this entire time. Now, I've been and still am working full-time. She has a fair chunk of savings from when she did not work, and we currently live with my parents. So there aren't many household expenses at the moment, though obviously she doesn't get much income. Recently, we went on a long vacation, and before doing so, I told her that she should notify social services that she would be leaving the country, as they would have to pause her payments until she returns. 4 weeks into vacation, she gets an international call from them, which she completely missed, and a notification that she now owes them money. So obviously she didn't do that. Now, I kept my mouth shut since scolding her wouldn't really do anything, and instead just figured it would get sorted out when we returned. Well, now, 2 weeks after we're back, she comes in while I'm working at home, saying that she's too anxious to call them and get it sorted out. So I offer to be there on hold with her, since I still need to get my work done. But she says that I could call them on her behalf when I'm on my lunch break. But you know what? I refused, because these calls take a notoriously long time, and it would almost definitely eat into my work hours as well. She's now calling me selfish and a jerk for refusing, and when I asked after finishing my work if she had called, she hasn't answered me, and instead just keeps saying, well, why does it matter to you? So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all, because this is something she absolutely needs to take care of herself. I completely understand that she has some things going on where she can't get things done and she has a lot of anxiety about making phone calls, but seriously, this is not something that should be shipped off on your table to take care of. For reference, the original poster's 30 and the partner is 29 years old. And sure, she messed up with payments and all that other stuff, but that doesn't mean it can't be fixed like pretty much right away. And you know what? Even if you did try to call on her behalf, this is literally only going to go so far until they need to talk to her directly. It's not like you're the one that's going to be processing the payments or anything like that. She still has to be the one to talk to them to get all of this taken care of. So why not just do it instead of trying to like pass it off on your boyfriend? Like that would be super annoying, and I would personally find that very frustrating, because she's more than capable of doing this. It's also super disappointing that she's reacting in the way that she is. She's calling you the jerk and saying, well, why does it matter to you if I called or not? And it's like, seriously, you are not the villain here. You're not the reason she missed her payments, because when it gets down to it, this is quite literally her own fault. So no, you're not the jerk here, and honestly, I think the way your girlfriend is acting is completely unacceptable. My mom asked me for a live organ donation after she destroyed her liver from drinking way too much. And now this has brought up feelings that I've bottled up my entire life, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mom has been an alcoholic my entire life, and a few years ago, she went into liver failure. She then asked me to get my blood tested to see if I could be a potential match for a live organ donation. After a childhood of some neglect and use for emotional support for her, this really sent me into a spiral. I saw counseling about it, and I knew I wasn't going to do it, but being asked to do it is what really messed with me. Now, fast forward, and a young man passed away, and she got his liver before it got to the point of me going for more testing. She was sober for a year before, and for some time after the surgery, but in the last year or so, I've suspected that she's begun drinking again. But I went home for a visit a couple of weeks ago and found out for sure. She was drinking at my aunt's house where we were visiting, trying to hide it until she got too drunk to care. She was her usual dark and confrontational confrontational self that she is when she drinks, and I was very uncomfortable. I asked her if she should be drinking, and she said yes. And she wasn't just drinking, she got wasted. I mean, she could barely walk. The next morning, she asked me if I was mad at her, and I said no. And then I told her that I'm just not sure that she should be drinking. She then said that if I'm going to be mad at her, then she's going to leave. She then wanted me to convince her to stay, but I just said nothing, and then she left. Ever since then, I've talked to friends and to my therapist, and they all agreed that I need some space from her. So I then texted her saying that I needed some space, and she acted very immaturely, acting like she had no idea why I might do something like this, saying things like, "I hope you know how devastating this all is for me. If I gave her my liver, went through the risky surgery, took months off of work, changed my body forever for her, and she was still drinking again, I would never speak to her again. But instead, she got someone else's liver. So am I allowed to be angry at this moment? Because right now, I really don't know what to do." Oh man, this really is a tragic situation. Your mom clearly has a problem, and I don't think any amount of transplants are gonna change that. And it's like, how selfish can someone possibly be? The only reason her liver is failing is because she is an alcoholic. It's not because of something outside of her control. This literally is something that she caused on herself. So the fact that she would take advantage of the fact that some young man died so that she could have this liver is just completely uncalled for. Like, this really is disrespectful to this young man's memory. And also for the original poster, I think it's completely reasonable to be angry about this situation because you're watching your mom literally throw her life away. She's just drinking all the time and wasting away her one last opportunity at life. And I think the original poster is right. If they had taken time off work and gave a part of their liver over to their mom only for her to start drinking it away again, like, I would be so devastated and heartbroken. Like, I know for me, I would just walk away at that point. I would feel completely betrayed and be like, wow, I'm never helping you with anything ever again. Like, what does she actually expect? Is she just gonna keep drinking and ruin this liver as well? Like, why not try to make a change in your life and get some help? So truly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, and I'm so sorry that she asked you for your liver in the first place. Because based on what you described, this lady does not sound like a good mom in the slightest. An entitled mom shows up to my house demanding that I hand over my cat so that she can borrow him for her 6-year-old's birthday party. But despite the fact that I told her on Instagram that my cat isn't available for loan, she still decided to show up to my house, screaming that I was selfish for not handing over my cat. And I've honestly never dealt with anybody this insane in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have a very fluffy and very adorable cat that I named Mochi. He's basically my little buddy, and he's got one of those Instagram accounts where I post funny antics, so a lot of people in my neighborhood know about him. And this includes one mom who is the entitled mom of this story, who has a 6-year-old daughter who's super into cats. Well, one day, this entitled mom messages me on Instagram, saying that her daughter is absolutely obsessed with Mochi, and asking if I could bring him to her daughter's birthday party the following weekend so that the kids could play with him. Well, I politely declined, explaining that Mochi doesn't do well in new environments and would likely hide or freak out around loud kids. Now, what was this entitled mom's response? She said to me, "Well, can you just loan him to us for the day?" And yes, you heard that right. She literally wanted me to just hand over my cat as if he were a library book or something like that. She promised that they would take good care of him and even offered to pay me $20 for the inconvenience. But I politely refused again, saying that Mochi isn't up for loan, and I don't think it would be safe or comfortable for him. This entitled mom immediately switched tactics. She then started calling me selfish and was accusing me of gatekeeping joy from her daughter. She rants about how it's just one day and that I owe it to the community because I flaunt Mochi's pictures online all the time. Well, at this point, I'm now getting irritated. I tell her that my cat isn't an accessory, and he is definitely not something that I owe to the neighborhood. Now, I assume that's the end of it, but unfortunately, things pop off the day of the party. I'm just sitting in my apartment when I hear a loud knock at my door. Standing right in front of me is the entitled mom and her daughter, with the girl holding up a sparkling cat carrier. The entitled mom smiles at me and says, "Oh, we came to pick up Mochi." And she's standing there acting as if we had agreed on this in some kind of way and just expected me to hand him over on demand. Well, I was completely stunned. I then said to her, "Look, I never agreed to this, and I'm definitely not giving up my cat." The entitled mom's smile drops instantly, and she launches into this loud, dramatic rant about how I'm ruining her daughter's special day and that I should not have shown off my cat if I didn't want to share. Her daughter then starts tearing up, and the entitled mom gives me this accusing look, as if I've broken her kid's heart on purpose. My neighbor down the hall actually poked her head out to see what was going on, which was more than open enough for this entitled mom to grab her daughter and storm off. As she was leaving, she yelled at me and said, "I'll make sure that everybody knows how selfish you are." I later found out from mutual friends that she spread a story around the neighborhood that I baited her daughter with mochi, only to then withhold him out of spite. Now thankfully nobody really believed her, but she still gives me the dirtiest looks anytime I pass her up. Now when it comes to Mochi himself, he is completely oblivious and totally unbothered, living his best life as usual, which is exactly how I want him to be. Wow, this lady's crazy. She not only tried to take your cat, but she showed up to your house to do it. First of all, how does she know where you live? That is some creepy behavior right there. That is like really not okay. But it's also insane that she literally had this conversation on messaging the day before, calling you selfish and all this other stuff, and then shows up at your house like, "Okay, we're ready for mochi." It's like, lady, what are you talking about? You can't do that to someone. You can't just walk up and be like, "We're taking your cat for the day and there's nothing you can do about it." So yeah, this lady's out of her mind if she thought this was okay. Because at the end of the day, the only person who ruined this kid's birthday party is the mom in this story, because the original poster quite literally didn't do anything wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for laughing at my sister's relationship troubles after she cheated on her boyfriend? Because right now she is not talking to me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a younger sister who we will call Emily, who was with her high school sweetheart by the name of Jake ever since she was 14 years old. For reference, Emily is now 25 years old. They dated all through high school and college, and honestly, they were the epitome of a perfect couple. Jake was always so thoughtful. He would surprise her with gifts, plan elaborate dates, and he literally lit up whenever she was around. They even talked about getting married at one point. Well, fast forward to a few months ago, and Emily cheated on Jake and broke up with him to be with her affair partner, who we will call Mark. Since then, she's been complaining to me about how Mark doesn't do any of the romantic things that Jake used to do. Apparently, he doesn't surprise her with gifts, and their dates are pretty lackluster compared to what she had with Jake. Last week, while I was on the phone with her, she started venting about how she feels unsatisfied in her new relationship. I don't know what came over me, but I just burst out laughing. I mean, she cheated on the guy who literally worshipped the ground she walked on, and now she's complaining about the new guy not measuring up? It just sounded so absurd to me. Emily then got really upset and told me that I was being insensitive. I tried to explain that I wasn't laughing at her pain, but it felt like poetic justice given how she treated Jake. Now she's barely talking to me, and I'm starting to feel bad for laughing at her. So am I the jerk for laughing at my sister, especially after she cheated on someone who treated her like a queen? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk. Emily cheated on Jake and didn't appreciate him at all. She had a fantastic relationship and is only now seeing that she completely screwed it all up. And you know what? If I was her older brother, I would say the exact same thing. I would be like, yeah, this is definitely poetic justice because you completely ruined everything. So no, you're not the jerk here, because what Emily did to Jake, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Me and my friends worked the system at my Catholic high school by quite literally absolving ourselves of any kind of consequences to our bad actions. And I'm honestly still amazed that we got away with it, all because of some loopholes that I thankfully discovered. Here's what happened. So I was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family who sent me and my siblings to Catholic-run schools from kindergarten all the way through high school. Now for this to make sense, some basic understanding of Catholic religious doctrine is going to be needed. And just bear with me as I will keep it brief. Catholics practice something called the Sacrament of Holy Confession. The belief is that if you confess your sins to a priest and truly repent for what you've done, the priest has the power to forgive your sins in the eyes of God. Most churches will have things called confessionals for this purpose, while some newer ones have small rooms with chairs, and the classic confessional is like a small closet, with the priest sitting in the closet next to you, separated by a privacy screen. Usually, confession will be held after a morning daily mass service, and one or more priests will set up the confessional, and congregants will go in one by one and say their confession. Now, the bond of the confessional is absolutely sacrosanct within the church. Think of it like lawyer-client privilege. A priest is never ever supposed to share anything they learn in the confessional, nor act on any information that they learn. Priests have even been executed by their government for refusing to testify in a trial about something they hear in a confessional. If a priest is found to have broken this bond, he will be kicked out of the priesthood and could possibly even be excommunicated from the church. So basically, it is a very big deal. So much so that the policy for priests is that even if they later learn something through normal means that they originally first learned in the confessional, they are not allowed to act on that information, lest it even give the impression to the person who confessed it that the priest was somehow breaking breaking the bond of confessional. And this last part is very crucial to the story. Well, sophomore year, my Catholic high school had its administration taken over by Salesian, a religious order of brothers and monks who are dedicated to educating children. Our new principal was a Salesian priest and started holding daily mass in our campus chapel every morning before classes. And he really encouraged people to go, but despite his efforts, it really never took off. It would just be the usual 1 to 2 super devout teachers and maybe one other super religious student or so. Then one Monday morning, right after homeroom, we hear the not uncommon announcement over the PA stating that the following students report to the principal's office immediately. Most of the time, this happened when those students were getting disciplined for some weekend shenanigans of some kind, and that is important to know because at a private school like this, we could be punished for that sort of thing. Well, we come to find out that someone threw a raging party. Someone's parents found out, they called the school, and now everyone involved was getting punished. And it was at this moment that I had an incredible epiphany. Next Monday morning, I was at morning mass bright and early, right at the front of the line to go into the confessional afterwards. I sat down with Father Jim, and I confessed to him in great detail all the trouble me and my friends had gotten up to over the weekend. And I told him everything, especially with where we went and who did what. The first time, I think he was kind of surprised. He gave me some acts of contrition to perform, and then said the absolution and sent me on my way. And I think the first few times he was actually pleased with himself that he's starting to really teach these kids. But I'm pretty sure that midway through the semester, he had caught on to what I was doing, and every now and then, he would make a sly reference or crack a smile. But he literally couldn't stop me. You see, by going and confessing everything we did over the weekend to our principal first thing Monday morning, I was putting all that information into the bonds of the confessional. Anything I told him there, Father would never be able to act on without risking serious consequences. If he got to his office and his first message was from my friend's mom explaining how she had caught all of us drinking and smoking in the alley behind her house, he could thank her for the information, but he couldn't punish us for it because I had already told him 20 minutes earlier all about it in the confessional. This tradition lasted all the way through senior year into graduation, and it served me and my friends incredibly well. Some other people must have figured things out as time went on because by the time I graduated, Monday mass sessions were always well attended, and Father had to start doing them earlier to save time for all the confessions he was hearing before classes. Now, I don't know if it was me or the Father that was guilty of malicious compliance here, but it makes me wonder if we played him by going to confessional like he insisted, but only for our own selfish reasons. Or did he play us in some kind of like 4D chess move? I mean, after all, in just 2 years, he somehow managed to get dozens and dozens of high school students to regularly attend mass before class, as well as going to confession every single week. So maybe this was a win-win across the board, because as a result, me and my friends were able to get out of so many problems. That is a really funny way of working the system, because you quite literally put this guy between a rock and a hard place, especially when you consider the impact that all of this would have on that principal's career. Am I the jerk for telling my father-in-law that he is an awful father for the way that he treated my husband? Because after I said that, he got super defensive, and at this point, I'm not sure what to do, or if I made a mistake by talking to him in the first place. Here's what happened. So I knew my husband, who we will call Rowan, for a while before we even started dating. We grew up in the same town, and we were good friends through school, so I met a lot of his family when I was a kid. We lost contact for university, but then kind of talked again afterwards, and have evidently dated and gotten married. When I was a kid, I always kind of thought that Rowan's dad was weird. I obviously didn't have much context for it then, but this is something I always thought. His mom passed away when Rowan was young, and he has one older brother who's about 11 years older than him, but obviously the age gap meant that they weren't very close for much of his childhood. I know that when Rowan was a teenager, he acted out, he drank a lot with his friends, got into fights, and didn't have good grades. I don't doubt that he was a difficult kid to raise, but I always thought that he was a good person, and I still do. When we started dating, he told me about the reasons behind him acting out, that his father was always drinking or out of the house, and that he constantly told Rowan that he wasn't good enough, that he was an awful son and all this other garbage, and was also accusing him of sneaking out, doing illegal substances, and he was constantly tearing his room apart looking for anything incriminating. Rowan's changed a lot now, and is a genuinely down-to-earth guy that would help anyone that asked. Him and his father don't really speak anymore, and this was mainly due to a huge argument they had when Rowan was about 18 years old, and his dad said that his mom would be really disappointed in him if she was still alive today, and that he was never going to amount to anything. Rowan told me after that, he packed his bags, stayed with a friend for a while, and hasn't particularly spoken to his dad dad ever again. Well, Rowan and I went back to the hometown this weekend to see my parents, and me and my mom went out to a bar for ketchup. I immediately recognized his dad because he has a bunch of tattoos of random things on his neck, and that's something that I remember looking at as a kid, and he was standing next to me at the bar. We then made eye contact and he looked surprised and said something to the effect of, "I heard you and Rowan got married. I'm surprised. He always has been a skirt chaser. Thank God he doesn't speak to me anymore." I then repeated the sentiment that I was glad they didn't speak anymore, but added that it was because he'd been an awful father. Well, when I said that, he got really defensive, saying that Rowan had been difficult to raise, and when he said that, I just turned around and left to go and sit back down with my mom. At this point, I do kind of pity him, but I also wish that I had just not spoken to him and just left the situation. So am I the jerk for the way I handle this, and for calling this guy an awful father? What should I do? No, this guy really does sound like a piece of garbage. Like, how is that an introduction to like literally talking to someone who is married to your son? Like, if he's gonna give out that kind of garbage, then he had better be ready to receive it in return, because this guy's attitude, in my opinion, was completely inappropriate. And the fact that he got defensive after the terrible things that he said, in my opinion, shows exactly how awful this guy is. Today, I need to confess that the worst mistake I ever made was telling people that I won the lottery, because now everybody knows that I'm incredibly rich. But as a result, I had to cut literally everybody out of my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I won the lottery about 7 years ago. Between my annuity and profits made from investments, I get shy of $800,000 a year. I was absolutely stunned that I had won, but once I confirmed that I won, I started telling people. I thought that they would be happy for me, and they were happy for like a minute, but then they started asking me for money. It started with my friends and family, and then they told other people, and eventually I was literally getting 10 calls a day from people asking me for money. My favorite was the sister of my coworker saying she needed money for rent, and a friend asking me to buy them a $20,000 ring for a girl he had been dating only a few months, and she was even messing around with other guys on the side. Some people successfully used me, and I just eventually cut them off, and I still helped some people, but I had to cut them off too because they were asking me for money only to give it to others or using the money for something different. It was all very traumatic. I even had a therapist try to rip me off by asking me for a cash tip after our sessions. Eventually, I was spending more money on people than I was on myself. It's ironic that I have more money than I need, yet I can't give it away because it brings nothing but problems. People make generosity not worth it. People want me to finance their best lives and have the arrangement be exclusively on their terms. And I will never understand why people can't accept one thing without trying to get more. So I just chalk it up that people in my life had no respect for me, because this is something that honestly I'm so sick of dealing with. Okay, I think I've read so many stories like this, and the biggest common theme is that if you win the lottery, literally don't tell anybody. Keep it a secret and keep a lid on it. Because for starters, let's be honest, none of us are gonna win anything like that. The odds are so low it's not even funny. But if it does happen, like, my God, do yourself a favor and just don't say anything to anybody, because then you're gonna end up like the original poster. They're getting 10 calls a day from people being like, "Hey, can I have some money?" And then pretty quick, all your family and friends are gonna become like these leeches in your life. Like, I can see that becoming really traumatic and just so awful, because I know when I have good news, I talk to my family and I tell them everything. So you would think that this would be something that would be like safe to talk about, but no, it's just gonna be used against you probably forever. So hopefully all of this settles in some kind of way, and hopefully you're able to like enjoy this money and use it for a good reason, and not just to like fund other people's lives or activities, because after a while, I can imagine that being a nightmare to deal with, especially if you have to cut people out of your life because they turned into a toxic mess. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I won't be giving my son her last name? Because as a result, she's changed the rules of the trust that we have in our family that would basically deny my kid any chance at any money that we have as a family, all because his last name would be different. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female who's expecting my first child with my partner of almost 8 years. Our son is due in less than 2 months. And for this story to make sense, it requires some backstory. My father isn't in the picture, so my immediate family is me, my mom, and my twin. About 3 years ago, my maternal grandmother passed away. I didn't have a relationship with her, and neither did my mom due to them always fighting. My grandma was quite wealthy, and when she passed away, she left me and my twin $500,000 total in a trust that we couldn't access until we were 25 years old. But on the other hand, she left my mother absolutely nothing. So my mother got a lawyer and got money released early from that trust with the condition that me and my twin gave her half of our inheritance each. Now, if we hadn't agreed to give her anything, she would have gotten absolutely nothing. Our mom then convinced us to put all the money into a trust of her own that would be for our family exclusively for education and housing, saying it would build stability for future generations. So I used this money to get a house that me and my partner currently live in. Since my mom found out I was pregnant, she's been very pushy that we use her last name, which is currently my last name. It's a traditional Scottish name with a capital letter in the middle and a lot of use of the letters M and N. I didn't like the last name as it's hard to pronounce just from reading it. I also fully intended to take my partner's last name in the future. 3 months ago, I told her that we wouldn't be using her last name and we would be using just my partner's last name instead. Well, when I said this set her off, calling me petty and ungrateful. Now, I apologized for upsetting her and I asked if we could have a conversation about it so I could understand why it upset her. I expressed that I love her and I don't want her to be upset with me, but she refused, saying it was my child and I could do what I wanted. Well, after that, I assumed that she had come to terms with it and just moved on. But fast forward to last week, and I get a text message from my mom saying the following: "By the way, I've made changes to the trust. My last name needs to be your child's surname if you want him to benefit from the trust. I have not worked this hard for the future just to support your partner's last name. That is just the way it is. Either use my last name or your kid gets nothing. I'd rather take the lot and just spend it." But when I saw this message, this really upset me. I asked her to give me some time and space to think about what she's done, but she then went off on me about how her hard work wouldn't be wasted, even though she herself said it would be set up for future generations just like my kid. She wouldn't even have any money to blackmail me in the first place if we didn't agree to give her half of my inheritance after her own mother screwed her over. So at this point, I've got no contact, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm the jerk for not just using her last name to keep her happy in order to make sure that my son gets access to that money. I don't want him to miss out just because his grandmother is an entitled piece of work. What should I do? Oh man, this one is awful. First of all, you did not do anything wrong, and no, you're not the jerk for picking your partner's last name. Your mom is insane, and the way she's treating you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. This is some grade A manipulation that you absolutely do not deserve. Like, there were a lot of mistakes that kind of led us to this point where you gave her half your inheritance and then put all of it in a trust that she can access, because that was just like not a good move. Clearly your grandmother knew something that you didn't, because your mom got nothing from her mom, and I think we're starting to see why, because she is clearly a vindictive psychopath. Like, who in their right mind would act like this? Like, this is so unfair. So hopefully you can find some kind of resolution to this, especially when it comes to having this trust that was supposed to be for the family itself, because it literally just doesn't seem right that your mom can literally change the rules of this trust just to deny your kid specifically, all because you're not using the same last name, because that in and of itself is absolutely not fair. An entitled Karen tries to get me in trouble after I park my RV in my driveway, and even though I'm obeying all the rules of the homeowners association, this entitled Karen goes into a rage, even going as far as trying to turn my neighbors against me, all so that she can get me in trouble for having an RV in the first place. Here's what happened. So I live in a pretty standard suburban neighborhood, and like a lot of places, it's run by an HOA. A few months ago, I decided to buy an RV, and it wasn't anything fancy as it was a used one, but I was really looking forward to taking weekend road trips and having the freedom to get away whenever I felt like it. So I parked in my driveway thinking nothing of it, but within a week, I received a letter from the HOA. Apparently, RVs aren't allowed to be parked in the driveway or on the street for more than 72 hours at a time. The letter warned that if I didn't move it, I'd start getting fined $50 a day. I wasn't thrilled, but I wasn't just gonna give up my RV either. So I read through the rules carefully. The HOA guidelines said that RVs must be not visible from the street or common areas. And that was it. No specifics on where or how the RV had to be parked, just that it couldn't be seen. Well, if that's what they wanted, that's exactly what I'm going to give them. I called up a contractor and had a solid 8-foot privacy fence installed around my front yard. It was a simple wooden fence, tall enough to completely block the view of my driveway from the street, and I made sure that it was solid, with no gaps or any chance of anyone being able to see through it. I parked the RV right up against the fence, hidden from view, meaning that technically I was following the rules perfectly and I knew it. But of course, things didn't stay quiet for very long. One of my neighbors, who we will call Karen, had already been vocal about not liking the RV in my driveway. She was the first one to send me a complaint about it, calling it an eyesore and saying it was ruining the neighborhood's charm. She even knocked on my door demanding that I move it. When I told her I was following the rules and had made sure the RV wasn't visible, she left in a huff, muttering something about how the HOA would take care of it. Well, the HOA did respond, but not in the way that Karen expected. A few days days later, I get a letter from the HOA saying that they had reviewed the situation and found no violations. They acknowledged that I was in compliance, but trust me, this entitled Karen was not having it for a single second. Over the next few weeks, she went around the neighborhood complaining to the other neighbors about how the RV was still ruining the community's aesthetic. She was convinced the HOA just hadn't caught on yet, and she started rallying people to get the rules changed. She even went as far as knocking on doors and asking neighbors to send complaints to the HOA about my RV. I then started getting passive-aggressive comments when I ran into neighbors. One said to me, "Oh, I'm sure the HOA is going to change the rules soon enough." And another just sighed and said, "This isn't what this neighborhood is supposed to be about." But every time they complained, I just smiled and said, "I'm in compliance with the HOA's rules. I'm not doing anything wrong." But this entitled Karen wasn't done. A month later, she went straight to the HOA board, trying to rally a group of neighbors to push for a rule change to make sure no RV can be parked anywhere in the neighborhood. She got a couple of others on board, and they started sending in complaints about how my RV was ruining the neighborhood's curb appeal. So the HOA called me in for a meeting. I was a little nervous, but I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. When the HOA arrived, they started walking around my yard looking for the RV. After a few minutes of confusion, one of them finally said, "So you're still parking the RV here?" I then nodded and pointed towards my driveway, where the RV was hidden behind the fence. I told them, "Well, yes, it's still here, but as you can see, it's not visible from the street. I'm following the rules exactly." The HOA rep stood there for a moment, looking frustrated, because there was no way they could argue with that. After a long silence, one of them sighed and said, "Well, I guess we can't really do anything about it if it's not visible." And surprisingly enough, that was the end of it. The HOA couldn't do anything more, and the Karen and the other neighbors had no legal ground to stand on. But this entitled Karen wasn't ready to give up just yet. A few days later, this Karen sent me a message. "I guess you win this round, but I'm watching you. I'll be keeping an eye out for any mistake or violation, and when I find one, I'll be right on it." But all I did was smile to myself. She could be watching all she wanted, but the fact of the matter is that my RV was hidden, and I was in full compliance. After that, things quieted down. No more complaints, no more passive-aggressive comments, and while this Karen may be eyeing me up, there was nothing left that she could do because I had completely won. As someone who deals with an HOA on a daily basis, this is honestly so satisfying. Do you know that some of these rules are so stupid? Most of the time, HOAs are run by a bunch of old people who have stupid rules in place that literally ruins everything in the neighborhood. Some things can be reasonable, but for the most part, it's all just really annoying and tedious stuff. So the fact that the original poster worked around it and used their system against them, in my opinion, is so satisfying. So good for the original poster for getting back at these people and for getting back at this annoying entitled Karen for literally trying to ruin your life, because your solution to this problem was absolutely brilliant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not reacting properly after half of my friend group lied to me and the rest of us that they had booked a surprise Airbnb so that we could have our Secret Santa event? But in reality, this was a house that they bought secretly behind our backs that they lied to us about, expecting us to all pay $60 going towards this Airbnb. And now, as a result, me and the rest of my friends are questioning the intentions of the other half of our friend group, because right now we really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so every year our friend group hosts a Secret Santa event. A major part of this tradition involves booking an Airbnb where most of us plan to stay, though not everyone who shows up ends up sleeping there. Typically, we spend a few hours on Discord searching for Airbnbs that meet our criteria. We consider the location, capacity, our budget, and then we start bookmarking options for further review. This year, our entire friend group followed the usual process, spending hours searching through listings and bookmarking potential choices to revisit later. Then, about 2 weeks ago, half the group, we'll call this Group B, suddenly stopped communicating with us, we'll call us Group A, and went completely silent on Discord for an entire week. This abrupt change left Group A confused, prompting us to ask questions about what was going on and why Group B had suddenly stopped communicating with us. Suddenly, a few days later, Group B's main planner, the person who typically leads our event coordination, announced that he had booked a surprise Airbnb that was within budget and it was located in a great area. While Group A appreciated the effort, we requested more details, wanting at least some basic information about the place. However, the planner refused to provide any specifics, repeatedly responding with, "Oh, just trust me," and informing us that each participant would need to contribute $60, and this will be important later on. As days passed, Group A grew increasingly confused and uneasy about this Airbnb, which we were expected to help pay for, without any assurance or photos of what we were actually funding. Then a friend close to some members of Group B, we'll call him Jay for the sake of the story, let us know that the planner had recently purchased a house where everyone in Group B would be moving into. While we recognized this as an impressive feat for Group B, we were still confused by their continued insistence on presenting it as an Airbnb that we needed to contribute $60 a person towards. So with this information, Group A tried to get confirmation from Group B, but they wouldn't even budge, even as the Secret Santa event came closer. Jay also told us that part of the so-called surprise was that we wouldn't actually need to pay for anything, since the planner owned the house. Finally, last night, Group B revealed the truth. They had moved into a newly acquired house, and it would be the location of our Secret Santa event. But Group A wasn't thrilled about the week of lies and secrecy over something we had initially believed was an Airbnb that we were expected to fund. Well, after that, Group B was not happy with us, claiming that we acted essentially like babies for not being more supportive of their actions in getting this house for our event. So truly, am I the jerk for making them feel disappointed in us by reacting in a disgruntled manner? What should I do? Okay, this is absolutely insane. This is incredibly weird for starters, but also it comes off as super sketchy. For starters, they lied to the group. They literally said, oh, it's an Airbnb and we got it as a surprise. And part of that lie was that you had to pay $60 towards this stupid Airbnb, which by the way, it's not an Airbnb, and the $60 would have gone to God knows what. Like that for me is 2 strikes already, and the fact that they couldn't be upfront with you, and they were lying and basically like hiding around the corner their actual intentions, for me is the 3rd strike in this situation. The person coordinating Group B is an absolute moron. If they had just been honest about what was actually going on, this could have been a great thing for the entire group. Like why not just be open and honest upfront about what's going on, instead of running around and being like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a secret. I can't tell you what's going on, sorry. The fact that they had to find out from somebody inside the group the actual intentions of Group B, in my opinion, is so toxic it's not even funny. But worse yet, it's the fact that they try to be like, wow, you're acting like a bunch of babies. It's like, no dude, I'm not being a baby. You're asking me to just trust you on traveling to some place I've never gone to before, buying a plane ticket and going to a house I've never seen in my life. That's not me acting like a baby. That's me actually having, I don't know, some common sense about myself. For this person to expect you to just trust them no matter what and be like, oh, don't worry, there's a surprise coming. Like that's insane. That's not okay. Like that really is super sketchy. There's no other way to look at this. Like this would make me question if I even knew this person to begin with. Having friends on Discord can be nice, and it really is a good way to connect with people, but in situations like this, you need to know for a fact if you can trust this person or not. Because if I had a friend who was like, oh yeah, we've got a house set up, don't worry about it, and they then refused to give me any more information, then I would back out immediately and probably never trust them ever again. Because this behavior is completely uncalled for, and they have no right to treat you in this manner. Am I the jerk for not attending a reception to a wedding I was uninvited from? Because right now, my boyfriend's friends are saying that I overreacted by not showing up, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend's childhood friend got married this weekend. My boyfriend and I have been newly dating maybe about 6 months, and I have always gotten the cold shoulder from his friends. For context, my boyfriend and his friends have been close since grade school, so basically there's some really small town vibes going on. Since beginning our relationship, I have seen his friends a total of 3 to 4 times, while we hang out with my friend group fairly regularly. I've known about this wedding since the beginning of our relationship, and in the few times I've seen his friends, their wedding always came up, and the bride and I had briefly spoken about timeline, the excitement, and all this other stuff. Well, this week my boyfriend told me that I had been uninvited from their ceremony because they were over capacity, but also stated that I was more than welcome to attend the reception. I asked the normal questions. Was I the only one uninvited? Isn't it more expensive to have more people at the reception than the ceremony? And all this other stuff. He mentioned that there was an exception for married couples, which happens to be everyone else in the party. So clearly some more small town vibes. He is a groomsman in the wedding, and throughout the day, we have been talking about what I can and should wear, when to get there, and what to expect. He then texted me later into the evening and said dinner was about to be served. I asked if that was part of the reception or if I was missing something else, but apparently I was only allowed to come to drink and party, but not to any of the other wedding festivities. I then put my phone on Do Not Disturb for the evening and I just stayed home. Now, my boyfriend supports my decision, but his friends said that I was overreacting. So was I the jerk for not attending a reception to a wedding I was uninvited from? What should I do? Okay, first off, no, you didn't do anything wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk because how are you overreacting here? You didn't do anything. You literally stayed home and didn't go to a wedding that they clearly didn't want you at in the first place. And why show up at all? It's pretty obvious they don't like you. They've given you the cold shoulder pretty much from day day one, and it doesn't seem like they've made any attempt to get to know you or have any kind of like friendship with you in the first place. And there's not really a good enough excuse to be like, oh, that's understandable, because they know your boyfriend really well. In fact, they've known each other since grade school. So for them to not make any attempt at you being like involved in the group in some kind of way is just so weird and uncalled for. So personally, I don't blame you for not showing up, because their reaction alone, in my opinion, pretty much confirms that they wanted you to be offended about not being invited. They wanted you at the reception to show up and feel left out just so they could be like, oh yeah, look at her, she wasn't at the wedding. But instead, they were met with you taking a stand and standing up for yourself. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and I think you made the better choice by staying home, because these people clearly do not care about you. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend after he invited a homeless man that I've never met before into my house to spend the night? Because right now he is not talking to me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. He lives about 2 hours away, so we often stay at each other's houses for long stretches of time as we both work from home. My boyfriend is genuinely the most generous and caring person I've ever met. He regularly befriends homeless people on the street, volunteers at food banks in his free time, and always carries cash to help out people who may be down on their luck. He had a rough patch before I met him, so he likes to give back when he can. Now, he's been staying at my place for about a week, and this all happened yesterday. I was out running errands while my boyfriend was working, and when I got back home at around 5 o'clock, I walked into my apartment and was greeted by a total stranger in my kitchen. Now, I screamed initially from the surprise, but my boyfriend was there and explained the situation immediately. The man's name for the sake of the story will be Roger, and he was homeless. My boyfriend had apparently met him on a walk today, and they had started chatting. Roger mentioned that he had been sleeping in a tent for the last month, and my boyfriend had offered my couch up to him for a few nights, along with a few meals and hot showers. And when I heard this, I didn't know what to say, so I excused myself to the bathroom for just a little bit. I heard my boyfriend and Roger chatting in the other room, and honestly, he seemed nice enough, but I felt so uncomfortable by the whole situation. I ended up making some excuse about meeting a friend for dinner just so I could leave the apartment. But while I was out, I texted him saying that while I respect his generosity, I really wish he hadn't offered my apartment without consulting me first. I told him that it made me very uncomfortable to share my space with a complete stranger that I don't know at all. I said that if he wanted to let him take a shower and have a meal, that was fine, but I did not want him staying the night. Well, when I got back home at around 10 o'clock, Roger was gone, since my boyfriend had gotten him a hotel for the night. He and I got into an argument about how he felt I was classist and that I was unwelcoming for not letting Roger stay. He said when he was in Roger's position, he would have been so grateful for a couch and a hot meal like this one. He also claimed that if he had brought home a friend that I didn't know who wasn't homeless, then I wouldn't have kicked him out. I don't think he was right by inviting anyone, homeless or not, into my house without asking me first. Also, the couch he offered is brand new. I'm trying to be very careful with it, and to be completely honest, all of Roger's clothing and belongings smelled heavily of cigarettes as he was sitting on it. I have a very sensitive nose, and I know even in just the time that he was here, it will take me days to stop smelling it. My boyfriend hasn't spoken to me all day, and he went out at around noon, probably to check on Roger in the hotel room. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Your boyfriend is out of his mind if he thinks this is okay. If he wants to volunteer his house for homeless people or work at the food bank or the soup kitchen, then fine, go for that. That's absolutely fantastic, and that's a great thing for him to do. But for him to volunteer your home to this guy that you've never met with the expectation he's going to be sleeping in the same house as you, like that, in my opinion, is crazy. That is not only super unsafe, but also incredibly stupid of your boyfriend. Because let's get down to the facts real quick. How well does he know Roger? Does he know if Roger has a weapon on him? Or maybe like illegal substances of some kind? Like he doesn't know any of that information. This guy could be lying about his story and waiting to get in people's houses to like exploit their generosity and then rob the place blind or even injure you and your boyfriend. Because let's be honest, your boyfriend is being super naive. I understand he was homeless at some point, but to open up someone else's house for him to bring homeless people in, that is crazy, and there is no good excuse for that. Because he literally forced this upon you when you did not agree to this at all. And that, in my opinion, is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for telling my mom to stop playing the victim after she tries to pretend that nobody appreciates her at Thanksgiving dinner? Because after I called her out in front of the entire family, she stormed off, repeating to me the things I've heard since my childhood about me being selfish and incredibly cruel. And now my family is split down the middle, with some of them saying I was in the right to call her out, but the others saying that I was heartless in that moment. And so because of that, I feel incredibly confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom and I have always had a strained relationship. Growing up, I learned early that everything had to be about her needs, her feelings, etc. I was expected to manage my emotions around her, tiptoeing through every interaction to try and keep the peace. If something didn't go her way, she'd somehow twist the situation until she was the one hurt, the one who'd done everything right and was never appreciated. I hated the way it made me feel, but I told myself that one day I'd have a chance to set boundaries and live my life without walking on eggshells. But as an adult, nothing's really changed. I still find myself anxiously checking my tone, weighing every word before I speak, just to keep her from making herself the victim. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving for the family, and I promised myself that it would be a peaceful day. My mom would come, but I'd just focus on keeping things calm. No drama was gonna happen. Well, things were fine at first. My dad was cracking jokes, everyone was catching up, and I started to think that maybe this time would be different. Then, as we sat down to eat, my mom started in. First, it was the small jabs and comments about how I never call and how I'm always too busy for her. I tried to brush them off, but then she moved on to bigger things, saying how family means so much to her, but she feels like she's the only one who cares. That's when she launched into her usual spiel about how much she's sacrificed, how no one appreciates her, and how she's such a good mother who's never shown gratitude. At this point, I could feel my blood start to boil. I tried to hold my tongue, but I couldn't do it, so I snapped at her. I said to her, "Mom, you really need to stop playing the victim. It is exhausting, and it's why we don't get along." After I said that, the room went dead silent. She sat there absolutely shocked before her face crumbled and she started crying. She called me cruel, heartless, and that I had ruined Thanksgiving. She said she only ever tried to love me, but I was too selfish to see it. Then she stormed out, and my dad followed her, giving me a sad look like he knew this was coming but couldn't do anything about it. And now my family is completely divided. Some of my relatives have called me to say they understand, that she needed to hear it, but others think that I was heartless, that I could have been kinder or more tactful. They keep saying she's my mother, and that one day I'll regret speaking to her in this way. But a part of me feels like I had to say it. If I didn't draw a line now, I'd be stuck in this cycle forever. So now I'm conflicted, because I never wanted to hurt her, especially not on Thanksgiving Day. I just couldn't keep pretending her behavior was okay. She refuses to see her role in our issues, and I'm tired of always being the one who has to accommodate her feelings. So am I the jerk for finally telling her the truth, even if it hurt her feelings at Thanksgiving dinner? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I can't stand people who act like this, who literally try to make it seem like they're the victim of any situation that's in front of them, while also being the person who's like instigating some kind of argument. Like, that is super annoying, and it's something I seriously cannot stand. But you know what? In my opinion, if your mom really wanted to be some kind of victim, then congratulations, you get to be the victim. But in this case, it's not over nothing. And sure, the rest of your family doesn't understand the nuance of your relationship with your mom, but that doesn't matter. She clearly has acted like this your entire childhood, and now, even as an adult, she's still doing it. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be so frustrated putting up with that all the time. Like, seriously, when does it end? When is she gonna grow up and stop trying to start drama and take these jabs at you and try to pretend like, oh yeah, nobody appreciates me? Because in reality, she is the one causing the problems. And sure, this did happen in front of the entire family, but your mom is the one who started this in the middle of Thanksgiving. And if she can't take your honest words about the situation, then maybe she's the one who shouldn't have started it in the first place. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.